Hello and welcome to Fresh Face Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friends through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me, as always, is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
This episode, I will be campaigning for the casting of one Sandy Toksvig as Julia Capitalis in some live-action Wonder Woman project.
All right, I don't know who that is, but all right.
Host of QI, host of the Great British Bake Off.
I got nothing. Sorry.
Okay, that is a shame. That is a shame.
Speaking of Julia,
perfect casting.
Speaking of Julia Capitalis, we're here to talk about Wonder Woman by George Perez, Volume 2, this being issues 15 through 24, plus annual number 1, in whatever order they're meant to be collected in. There's a very clear spot in the timeline that the annual is supposed to take place in. But yeah, so this is Volume 2 of the George Perez Wonder Woman run. At the end of this episode, we'll be finishing off our block of Wonder Woman stories, so stick around to the end of the episode to find out what we're going into next time. I know Jacob's very excited to find out what
I have a string of guesses that I am.
I don't think you're particularly confident in any of them.
I am not. I'm like, this is. I don't know. I think I may have the hero marked down.
Okay.
I just don't know where.
Interesting. We shall see. So yeah, so stick around to the end of the episode. In the meantime, before getting into today's episode, as always, thank you all so much for listening. It really does mean a lot. As of right now, I think what we really need to focus on, if you're really into the podcast and you like what you're listening to, be sure to share it around and get other people to listen to it, because we're at a great stage of growth right now, and we really want to see that growth continue to expand and reach new audiences as we continue to grow as a podcast and as readers. So yeah, and on what we're reading, we're expanding into new territory. The next couple episodes are definitely a showcase of that sort of new things that we're delving into. So yeah, be sure to stick around for that, and be sure to share the podcast around. It really does mean a lot. I guess let's get right into this with Wonder Woman by George Perez, Volume 2. Non-spoiler section first, as always. Jacob, what is this collection of stories about?
So this is very much a reaction to the end of Volume 1, where Volume 1 was 14 issues of two very closely interconnected stories. Volume 2 goes a bit more episodic. There's still connections. It's still all very well tied together. And it's very much, one, I think it's Perez realizing, oh, now I'm writing an ongoing. Because I have the feeling that he was originally just writing 14 issues of a series that he loved, and he thought I think
initially he was slated for only like the first year maybe of the run, and then just sort of kept going with it for a really long time.
Yes,
I think didn't one of the new Teen Titans introductions say that he was like only on for a year, and then the year after that he just kept signing on again and again because he loved doing it.
He just kept going, and at this point, like after a couple issues in Volume 2, Lenween is gone scripting, and it's all Perez.
Yeah, the entirety of the issues from that point are scripted, drawn, or at least laid out by Perez. So it really does become his baby entirely.
This is his baby. It actually takes the time. Let's actually focus on quite a bit on Diana, how she's been growing in man's world and how that affects things, and really exploring the idea of what it means to be an ambassador, and how that affects Diana and her relationships with others. All this very nice through line, and it leaves it it ends up leaving it at a very, very nice sort of spot for the volume, dealing with the human side and then the Olympian side. The last couple issues especially deal with the Olympian side of things, and then there's this issue in the middle that deals with the human side of things. I'll also say, at this point, Perez makes some decisions. One decision in particular that I love. I was lucky enough not to have it spoiled.
Yeah, I remember I told you because you ordered both volumes at the same time, and I happened to be in the middle of my Volume 2 reread at the time, and I was like, Jacob, whatever you do, just like, because there's a table of contents at the beginning of Volume 2, I was like, just don't look at the title of issue 20, please. I want that to be a surprise, and it was. I could tell because I woke up the next one morning and you were like is this for real? Like, is this actually happening?
And what made it worse is I could not read the issue that day. I was just really busy that day,
Yeah.
so I had to wait a whole extra day to read this one. Yeah, to read issue 20. I would also say, so I will say it's really hard to rank these two volumes. Like,
Yeah.
it's difficult.
Yeah, one of our Twitter questions is about, how we compare the two volumes, and like it's hard. It's hard to do. Um
Uh, I think I like the volume 2 slightly more,
mhm.
but they're about the same just in terms of quality, just because of how much they do a lot of similar things, as well as understanding how to transition from this idea of Perez telling one story to creating an ongoing.
Yeah.
Um,
I do want to get into our first Twitter question since I brought it up already. Our friend Mason at the GD256 says, yet again, I know nothing of the source material, but Jacob is bullying me into asking
I
questions.
did not bully him. I asked politely if he would ask something.
Number one, how does this volume compare to the first? So we started touching on this a bit. Overall, for me, it is really tough to decide between the two because they are doing two very different things. Um, I think overall, I think two wins out just a little bit for me, if for nothing else, just the sheer quality of issue 20.
Issue 20.
Um,
I'd also say the first two issues of this one.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I do really like that story. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
it's
I mean, and
really,
also that's the one that directly ties into issue 20. So
yes.
yeah. But yeah, it's a very strong volume altogether. And we talked, for nearly 3 hours last time on how great volume one is. But I think this one just edges it just a little bit.
Yes.
Mason's second question reads, do you imagine any specific voice actors slash celebrities when you read the dialogue for these characters? So,
So
I get
I imagine Julia Capitalis as Sandy Toxvig, who,
as you have already mentioned,
which I'm
uh,
surprised you don't know who she is, Joey.
I feel like I should, but I don't.
Well, she was in one audio drama. She was in Red.
Oh, was she? Okay.
Yeah, she
I don't
was.
remember enough about Red
Yeah.
to know
Well,
who
after
she
this, you can look up who she is, because got that sort of posh British,
is.
like air about her, but also this motherly feel.
Gotcha.
So
Cool. But yeah, I mean, for me, I know I have just a bit more experience of like Wonder Woman voice actors than you do, but as far as Diana as a character, I mean, it's Susan Eisenberg. It's got to be. I don't know if you've had any Susan Eisenberg content yet. Have you?
I really haven't.
That's crazy because that's like the Wonder Woman voice. I mean, I do love other voice actresses as well. I love Rosario Dawson from the DC animated movie
It was
universe.
Dawson whose voice I was hearing, but that's
I mean,
because
she's really great as the character. I
yeah.
love her. Also, we've been doing stuff with her voice for a long time since like the Death of Superman episodes.
Yes.
So there's that. Um, but yeah, I mean, she's great. What's her name? Carrie Russell from the 2009 movie. She's really good. And but yeah, Susan Eisenberg. It's got to be. I mean, from the animated universe, and I've played Injustice so many times that it's Susan Eisenberg. Like she's there the whole time too. So that's awesome. But yeah, it's Susan Eisenberg for me. Other characters, it's a little bit more difficult. I don't think I have anything specific in mind for a lot of them. How about you? Anyone other than
So
Julia?
that's the hard part. I have a vibe for Mindy Mayer, but I don't have a specific actress.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Like,
also for Vanessa, I think I have a fair few ideas in my head.
yeah, I have like vibes. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
not. It's hard to come down.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
I guess if we're talking movie actors, I guess Steve Trevor for me is usually Chris Pine.
yeah. Chris Pine mixed with a bit of Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, Nathan Fillion's great in that film. Yeah, he's awesome. And then over to our last Twitter question, because we didn't get too many for this episode, which honestly is never a bad thing, but we do like engagement. Jamie at Jamie_season 7 says, "What do you think of Lenween as a scripter?" We talked about this a bunch last time, and he's not here for too much of this volume. But Jacob,
Very tight and
yeah,
punchy, and
hmm
that's important for comics. Like,
I
yeah,
think for as much as I prefer a lot of this volume to volume one, I think overall, Len Wayne's scripts are a bit stronger than the Perez scripts.
and I think a lot of that's just because Perez is being is just doing so much.
Mhm.
He's doing a lot, and it's good, but it suffers. Oh, I also, you know what? I have a cast for Cersei.
Okay.
Miranda Otto.
Ooh, okay, cool. Cool. That's great. Hmm.
I,
Actually, that is one thing that I like about this volume compared to the first one. I mean, you ask anyone on the street, their favorite Wonder Woman villains, or at least what Wonder Woman villains they know. It's always like Ares or Cheetah. This I love for the showcase of Wonder Woman villains throughout this. So being like Cersei, Silver Swan, she's
Swan.
there. There are a lot of great characters that show up throughout this, and Wonder Woman like has a great rogues gallery that a lot of people don't know about. So I like that this expands
They
upon
just
that.
they just don't get exposure. You get the cheetah,
And Ares,
but
and that's it.
if you're lucky.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hell, I mean, the second live action Wonder Woman film, he chose Cheetah and someone who is usually a Wonder Woman villain, but mostly a Justice League villain altogether.
I
Um,
was gonna say, wasn't that character like an Infinite Crisis thing happened, and that's
yeah,
how he became a villain or
yeah.
something?
Maxwell Lord is like typically just like an overall Justice League villain, you know. So yeah, so like Wonder Woman has a great rogues gallery that people don't talk about a lot. So I'm excited to get into those in this discussion.
Yes. I'll also say, unlike Volume One, there isn't that terrible case of sexual assault brought in. Like Perez just is like, oh, we're just gonna drop that and not.
I mean, Heracles is still here.
Heracles is here, but he's here considerably less.
I just I love the way you worded that.
That was the one thing that was keeping Volume One from being perfect. Like just that entire plot line, just coming kind of out of nowhere and being
Also,
handled very strongly.
just on a collection thing, Volume Two definitely chose the better cover of between
Oh
Volumes One and Two.
yeah,
Yeah, I really love the Volume Two cover. I also just love the re-inked, recolored version of it that's on here. I mean, I do like the original. You see the original? I think it's what issue 22's cover,
yeah,
something like that. And the original is great too, but I really like the re-inking and recoloring here. It's really nice.
and it stands out on the shelf. I love the design of these collections as well.
Hmm.
With the very like I just like the spines too, how they
Oh
line up
yeah,
on the shelf.
yeah, the spines are really nice.
Um, it's
So yeah, if you're gonna collect the George Perez Wonder Woman run, get these collections. They will all be linked down in the description. You can go check those out.
yes.
They're always great. So yeah.
So yes, and it's a solid run. Like,
Hmm.
and this is only the first third of it.
Yeah.
Like,
So
it's a
a
run
lot
I'm
more to get
very
into
excited.
eventually. Obviously, we won't be continuing next time, but there's so much more to this run, and I
I'm
think
excited. I'm excited to continue.
yeah. So I guess that about does it for our non-spoiler section. I think that's our most like succinct, well put together non-spoiler section.
Yes,
That was really nice,
I
actually.
had my thoughts and
That was
I
cool.
got them out there.
All right. Consider this now spoiler territory. We're getting into spoilers for Wonder Woman Volume 2. This will
If
be
you
once again issues 15 through 24 and the first annual. There's a lot of really great stuff in here that you definitely do not want spoiled for yourself. So do check out these books. Um,
also if you'd like to see what we're doing next time, now's your chance to either check the description or go to the
skip to the end of
end
the skip to the end of the
of the
episode. You can
episode.
find out what we're reading because usually Jacob's reactions to these things are always super fun. So yeah, so go check those out. All right, let's get into this with Wonder Woman number 15. So what did you make of the cover?
I was like, okay, what are we doing? Is
Yeah.
this is an interesting design?
And
So I
then it gets
couldn't.
even weirder when you open up and you see the first two pages.
Yeah, we open up with silence, some birds flying, um, I can't tell if it's a goose or a swan. Um,
Something.
Probably a swan. Heading into a lake. Diana on a horse. Lightning crashing. She flies in the sky, and suddenly, Superman.
And it's a great opening. So I really want to know your thoughts on this. What did you make of the idea that Wonder Woman and Superman was an idea pre Dan DiDio?
Well, it had to come from somewhere, didn't it?
It did, yeah, definitely. I mean,
The, the more and more
it's
I think, the more and more I learn about these ideas that DiDio has, the more and more I think he's just stealing from other ideas that other people had and that didn't take off.
but Red Nightwing is a very unique kind of terrible.
Sure, yeah.
So,
Well, not as terrible as apparently giving him amnesia and trying to write him out as Nightwing altogether.
look, I mean, I don't hate Grayson. It's written by
Oh
Tom
no, I'm
King.
talking about Rick Grayson.
Oh,
The
okay.
second time he did it.
Yep, that's right. You are correct.
But we don't need to go on a Dan DiDio rant. But this is 1980s George Perez writing Wonder Woman.
Yes. So in this, so we learn this is a dream. Diana and Superman almost kiss in the dream, and Diana wakes up and realizes that she has feelings for Superman, or at least something resembling feelings, because she hasn't really felt this before. She only
Yes.
knows of Superman mostly as an idea. She's met him very briefly, but doesn't know much about him. And
She has a copy of the Daily Planet, and I love that on the cover of the Daily Planet is the Superman logo.
I always like that when like the title logo is an in-universe logo too.
Yes. But it frightens her, and that leads us into our title page,
Swan song.
Swan Song.
Yes.
And this is uh, okay. So what's interesting about the credits at this point is that Perez did the inks for the first 4 pages
Hmm.
or the first 3 pages, and then Bruce Patterson finished, which is just you can't tell the difference because Patterson's inking is actually really good.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
It was great in Volume 1, and it pairs really nicely with Perez's inking.
Yeah.
But we are in Boston, uh, where we see a mysterious man behind a computer screen, um, accessing something to do with Silver Swan. Um, uh, a security guard comes in, is ready to shoot, and he gets his ass kicked.
Yeah.
Uh,
And this man escapes. Elsewhere in Boston, we are preparing for a Wonder Woman presentation. Um,
a
this is
Wonder Woman fair.
Yes, this is being set up by Mindy Mayer, of course, and with the help of one Skeeter LaRue.
Skeeter LaRue.
So this like it's very it's great to look back on this now, and to see this character as just like a fun little like side thing. He's comedic relief. He's just kind of there. He has phonetically written this phonetically written horrible country accent.
I think
uh
it's supposed to be like Southern
Southern.
because he's from
Yes,
Georgia.
yeah.
It's
um
I swear this here Georgia boy is gonna eat his portfolio.
but yeah, great, great to look back on him now, knowing what eventually comes of his character. But yeah, so he's helping Mindy set up this whole fair. They have this giant Wonder Woman. It's not a statue, is it just like what, like a giant
It's a giant poster slash painting
perfect.
because they are like walking over it. And it's nice. It's this idea of, oh, we're gonna have a fair to celebrate Wonder Woman. And we find out that one of his assistants is basically letting himself be walked all over, which is quite sad.
Mhm. But more on that later.
More on that later.
Um,
Meanwhile, in Chinatown, a woman called Valerie uh, was sent a note to meet someone in Chinatown in the middle of the night near like a phone booth.
mhm.
Um, and a car smashes in trying to kill her. She runs away, um, and basically, is cornered in an alley by this guy and is fired upon. And that's all we see.
Meanwhile, Diana is once again naked in the woods, as you do, and
Interestingly, the way Perez draws it is not really for fan service.
no,
Like,
it's fairly tasteful, yeah.
yes.
But yeah,
Uh,
a sleepy Vanessa comes out to join her, and I fucking Vanessa's dialogue sometimes. Um, she like sneaks up on Diana, and Diana goes, Vanessa, and Vanessa goes, well, it sure ain't Madonna, like. I love it. I love it.
Vanessa's just a character that you just like because
Yeah,
she's a teenager. She's a kid.
Well, I especially like some of the things they do with her in this volume. They're very fun. But yeah, so they go back inside together. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Massachusetts, this lady was not killed. Now this is not Vanessa, because Vanessa was the one that told her to come out there. What's this one's name?
This is Valerie.
This is Val, or sorry, not Vanessa. Sorry, I'm Valerie. No, I thought Valerie was.
Wait, no, Valerie is. This is. No, this is. So this is where it gets a little complicated because this is also a plot about a bounty hunter called Solomon Kitra being tasked to kill people,
As you do.
as you do. Um, yeah, but someone was hired uh, to kill her. Her name is Maxine Sternenbuck, which is
Yeah, Sterenbach, Sterenbuch.
Sternbuch.
I don't know.
It sounds German.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so she's waiting to meet up with a friend of hers named Valerie, who's a pen pal of hers. They've been talking to each other for a long time. And they're going to meet up apparently. But they've actually met before. So we learn through these flashbacks that after they met,
Well, first she got stood up and disappeared, and then they eventually met.
Yeah, where Valerie was with her.
Valerie wouldn't send a picture.
Well, yeah, but when she actually meets Valerie, is this her?
She's with.
Do they say who this guy is to her? They do.
Yeah, it's an industrialist. The guy who basically owns her, essentially.
Yikes.
Yikes. Yeah, because she is beautiful, and this is the late '80s, so Perez is, commenting on certain aspects of the late 1980s and diet culture, and you'll see that
this industrious sort of kicks Maxine out.
But they end up meeting on the sly, but they don't talk about her handler, shall we say. And she, Maxine just has to wonder, what sort of hold that this man has over her. And then she asks Maxine to meet her in Chinatown, and Solomon shows a picture of Valerie Boudry, and it is not human. It is
no, it is not.
It is ugly, incredibly ugly. And then he shows her a tape, a silent tape of his father, of her father, in fear for his life, attacked by the Silver Swan, which we'll see in full later. But in here, there's just she screams and the tape goes to static.
Yes. Meanwhile, we go back to her handler, I guess.
Yes.
Henry Cobb Armbruster is his name.
Which is Perez comes up with some great double-barrel names.
Right. But yeah, so Henry is told of the Wonder Woman fair.
And he's going to deal with the so-called Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Smoking on his cigar.
Meanwhile, we get a bit of a weird scene. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this scene.
Yeah, it feels a bit odd.
Of Steve Trevor tracking Etta Candy's weight loss.
I think the idea is that Etta's the one who wants to lose weight.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine, yeah.
But it's a little bit out of jealousy, and it doesn't entirely work.
Yeah.
But it's a small scene.
Anyway, we're now at the Wonder Woman fair. Steve is there. He meets up with these Vanessa and these kids that go to her school, namely Barry, who
fuck Barry.
Barry's a bit of a dick. Yeah. Anyway,
Barry is a child who is basically trying to get in Vanessa's good graces so he can meet Wonder Woman. and basically ogle Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
You know, and what's interesting is that there's also a sequence at the fair of people arguing kind of about is this fair really the right thing to do because this money could be spent doing better things. Meanwhile, we have Wonder Woman arrive.
I always like when Perez draws her with the cape.
Yes,
It's a very nice way to draw her.
And it just adds to it, and it's an entire half page. You see the crowd.
She flies in. She's doing this sort of presentation, but then the Silver Swan attacks. And what was it? Solomon and Maxine are watching as it all goes on. The Silver Swan attacks.
Comes in. People of Boston, beware! I am the Silver Swan. Obey my commands without hesitation, or my swan song will be the death of you.
And this guy comes in and holds a gun to Solomon's head. Meanwhile, Wonder Woman attempts to subdue Silver Swan, but Silver Swan, without this, like, I guess, Black Canary type screech.
The idea is that she has, a hypersonic voice that can destroy a Ferris wheel.
And the cliffhanger of the issue is this Ferris wheel crumbling and falling down and everything going to hell. But that brings us to Wonder Woman number 16, with a very busy cover.
But it's a cover that works.
Oh yeah, I'd say so. This is Bird of Paradise, Bird of Prey. So yeah, same team as the last one, I think, right? Actually no, Bob Smith is on inks this time.
Yes, and I think that was the last Bruce Patterson inks. He might do something for the annual, but at least last regular. This is the point where they start to really switch out the inkers quite a bit, which is not a bad decision, but it's interesting enough. But yes, the Ferris wheel is crashing down.
Wonder Woman holds up the Ferris wheel. She starts to save everybody.
She saves everyone, gets things to the ground. People start trying to just fire on the Silver Swan.
As the Silver Swan begins to make her escape, she starts to fly away. Wonder Woman puts the Ferris wheel down to safety. Meanwhile, we learn that Henry Cobb has been like giving commands to the Silver Swan this entire time. He's
basically forcing her, triggering bits of the transformation, like increasing it to level 3 to try to destroy the entire area. And the entire fairground is blown away.
They don't make any mention of casualties, but I gotta imagine there are a lot of deaths here.
Deaths and extreme hearing loss.
Right, at the very least.
Yeah.
But yeah, Silver Swan then escapes at the command of Henry, of course.
With a dramatic villain exit.
Of course.
And everyone can just watch on in horror. Diana is going to try, but more importantly, she's at this point just trying to save the people caught in the crossfire. And some people think, that it's Wonder Woman was just taking in the admiration. Some said they're going to sue the mayor agency and Wonder Woman.
Meanwhile, it seems like Skeeter LaRue is trying to make a swift escape. He's just trying to get out of there at this point.
Yeah,
very, very nervous by the display. Silver Swan has officially escaped at this point. Then Solomon begins to try to go after her. He takes aim with it's a crossbow, right? It looks like a crossbow.
It's a crossbow sniper.
That's fucking insane. I love it. Solomon's just the weirdest inclusion in this issue, and I love him. He's great.
And he's basically just a Perez creation because you needed a bounty hunter type character.
Yeah. So Solomon takes fire. Wonder Woman saves the Silver Swan by deflecting the arrow, and Silver Swan retaliates. She knocks down the tree that Solomon is hiding in. Wonder Woman goes after Silver Swan. Then there's a great sort of battle in the air here between the two of them. It's very well drawn.
A beautiful flight. And this whole and she's still having orders basically barked at her through the earpiece, and Diana ends up taking a tumble into Boston Harbor. And Silver Swan just screams into the water, into a concentrated beam that Diana manages to avoid. She gets back up again, realizes that the moment between the screams is when she's most vulnerable. So she strikes, throwing her tiara at Silver Swan, using
uh,
it like a
cl-
boomerang.
clipping off like a part of her one wing, and she then smothers Silver Swan with her cape, um, and Silver Swan breaks through with another blast of her sonic screech, um, setting Diana away, and Silver Swan washes up on the shore. It seems.
So in a completely different part of Boston, um, and Diana just lands in a historical, basically his historical reimagining of a pilgrim village, um, which is an interesting, which is nice image and a nice little bit of world building because this is supposed to be Boston.
Mhm.
Um, but she goes to find, uh, she goes to find Steve.
Mhm. We
Um,
get this nice little scene where we actually follow up on Challenge of the Gods, where we talk about the gun,
the gun.
which Diana did. I don't actually recall them establishing that Diana held on to the gun that Diana Trevor
I
gave to her.
think they did. I
I don't
think
recall.
they
I'm sure it happened. I just don't recall it.
yeah. But he gives Steve the gun, which is really nice. And we're really just more establishing that Steve and Diana's relationship is like a brother-sister dynamic, which I really like.
Yeah, yeah. There are two characters that I think can go either way. For me, I always default to them being a couple, but I can go either way.
Yeah. Um,
Meanwhile, we're reporting on the attack at the fair, while Maxine, weeps for her lost friendship. Um,
Flying out of Boston.
mhm.
Um,
And
and
then we
it's
get the last scene of this issue, which is called Prologue, which I'm sure you're at least a little pissed about because much like Challenge of the Gods, part of this story isn't actually part of these issues.
no,
Um,
is this another event?
not an event, but it crossed over with either two or three Superman titles at the time.
So
So so we get a scene here. We'll talk about that in a second. But we get a scene here where Vanessa's upset that Barry likes Wonder Woman. Um, so Diana comes in to talk to her and basically says that she has feelings for Superman, and Vanessa's
yeah.
very excited about this because
Vanessa is such a just a dorky teenager. I love it.
yeah, because in her mind she's like, well, if Diana likes Superman, then that means that she can't like Barry, and that I
Which is
love
just like Vanessa, she wouldn't like Barry. You shouldn't like Barry. Barry's a dick.
I love it. Also something we never commented on. I don't think it showed up before this. But
I know at least said Nessie's room, but
yeah, it says Nessie's room. It's a picture of the Loch Ness monster, and
Monster.
I like that.
These characters need to be adapted into live action,
Yeah.
Joey.
Absolutely. But yeah, so we send Diana away. Diana goes to talk to Mindy Mayer, who begins to set up a meeting with Superman because she just wants to
Yeah.
actually get to know him. And we get this really great scene where Mindy calls up Clark Kent and asks him to put Superman on the phone, and then Superman goes to talk to Diana.
And
And
it's adorable. I love the way
it's
Mindy's
so
just
great.
drawn with this smile, like, oh,
Yeah.
like happy
It's
for
so
her friend.
nice. It's so nice. I love it. Um,
It's
yeah, just brilliant. But yeah, so we end on a scene of Hermes witnessing general destruction in Olympus.
of Olympus,
Yeah,
which will become a thing later. It'll be a
which takes us into Wonder Woman number 17. But before we talk about that, I do want to briefly mention um, the Superman crossover that happened. So it was a crossover with a little bit of the main Superman title at like the very end of it led into this, but it was mostly an issue of Adventures of Superman and an issue of Action Comics, I believe. Um, it crossed over those two. That was where the actual meeting between Diana and Superman actually happened. There's a whole thing with Darkseid there and some references to the Greek gods that do get mentioned throughout these remaining issues in the collection. So
I
there's
didn't miss it
that.
as much. I honestly like.
they catch you up just fine.
Yeah,
Just
it wasn't as bad as the Millennium crossover.
Mhm.
Like absolutely just starting a story and then cutting to the end of that story.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's nice enough. Luckily, at least I think those issues are like still in print and collected in that in those hardcovers for the John Byrne Superman run.
Okay, well that's good. I think honestly, I talked to my one comic shop owner. I think he has those issues, so I might pick those up soon.
In just single issue form.
Yeah, I may as well. I mean, honestly, I just want to read those couple issues. So
Yes.
anyway,
So
so yeah, we open up number 17 now. I really like the cover of this one. All the silhouettes there. It's
all
just
the silhouettes.
very nice.
Yes.
This story is called Traces. Get a nice little opening monologue here, or inner monologue, or just I don't know,
It is monologue.
narration.
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 Because this is this is the first time George Perez is also scripting.
Yes. So I remember reading up on this issue, and there was a little story that the editor on this one, Karen Berger, that's it. Karen Berger read the initial script to Wonder Woman number 17 and told George Perez to rewrite the entire like first 9 or 10 pages because they just weren't any good apparently.
I could imagine that.
Yeah, like Perez, I imagine hadn't written much at that point at all, like let alone like full scripts for issues
Yeah,
that he's
I mean,
also drawing.
yeah, he was. I mean, at this point, he was, probably, working with Marv Wolfman on Titans and obviously then Crisis on Infinite Earths together, and he had lots of them there, but he wasn't writing those scripts.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, it's man was busy. Man was busy, so it makes sense that he would fall short a couple times.
Yet the
But
art doesn't suffer.
no, the art is always fantastic.
Also, this issue is inked by Dick Giordano, who
Mhm.
is he's a name who's popped up before.
Yeah. Also forgot to mention it before, but speaking of names that have popped up before on the podcast, we do get some Brian Boland art this time.
We do, we do.
We'll mention it when we get to it, of course. But I mean, there's not much of it, but it's nice to
What's
see that.
there is great.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, but yeah, Traces. We open up. Etta Candy brings a letter to Diana, or no, not a letter.
a passport.
Passport. That's it. Jesus Christ.
Because Diana, Julia, and Vanessa are getting ready for a trip to Greece.
Yeah, they're going to
Oh,
Greece. Yeah, it's just a nice little setup for
yes.
this.
Etta and Diana talk about their insecurities, which I think it's nice. It's a nice bit of dialogue establishing, that there isn't really any animosity or jealousy between these two women, because it would have been really easy for Perez to set up a love triangle and
Mhm.
make it terrible, but he
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah.
Meanwhile, upstairs, Vanessa is on the phone with her friend Eileen, informing like, Diana loves Superman. I've got Barry. Eileen it has more than one brain cell functioning, uh, uh, and she said, God, how blind can you be? Honestly, when Barry sees that he can't get to Wonder Woman through you, well, don't say I didn't warn you. And she's trying to be a good friend, um, but Vanessa's just in love, in dumb teenage love.
Yeah.
But is
But Diana calls Vanessa down. They all begin to prepare for their trip for Greece.
yes,
Yeah,
uh,
that's about it.
and well,
That's it. Then a pigeon brings a very small letter for Diana from Themyscira.
and we get an explanation for the language, that I think is really cool. That it's like pictograms that mean that you can get the exact meaning in a very small, uh, a small space, and like one character can mean the equivalent of like 20 words,
Yeah.
which I think that's a cool idea.
Hmm.
And Perez is smart not trying to actually show it, because that would have to construct an entire language.
Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah,
but yeah,
she reads this letter. They get on their way. They begin their trip.
it's a letter from her mother, that all is well. But it seems that their oracle's psychic bond with the gods uh, seems seems to have become silent. Um, and it's just checking, are you okay, is everything okay, um you know we're uh they are calling out to her, um, asking for help, um, you know, uh, and basically just asking, just get an update,
Yeah.
basically, which is nice. Um,
Yeah, we arrive at the airport. Everyone goes on board as Diana sends the pigeon away. Um, that's about it. Then we cut over to Olympus, where we see that everything is in ruins and chaos and whatever. It's just a big scene of the gods like complaining about the attack that has happened recently. So this is obviously something also that we missed in the Superman issues.
yes, well, because
Um,
there's also just the image of Darkseid,
yeah, yeah.
and it's like, oh, yeah. So I was just imagining, oh, this is there's an issue of something with Darkseid
Which
that,
I imagine is really cool in the original because just this dichotomy of Greek gods versus the new gods and all that. Um, I don't know. I just think that's a cool idea. But um, yeah, I don't know. I really want to read those issues. Anyway,
yes.
so
It eventually comes down to Hermes deciding to depart as the gods basically argue, um, about do they need that they need to be worshipped, um and do they all need to have their place as gods, and that's basically where it ends. It's basically where it ends. This plot thread will be picked up on
mhm,
later,
yeah, much later.
much
But
later.
yeah, speaking of things that we missed, Diana is pondering on her meeting with Superman. Um, in her mind, she says, in my confusion, I'd imagine perhaps Superman to be like a god. Perhaps my expectations were too high. Yet I thought we would have more in common than just unique powers. While my desire is to teach and inspire humanity to embrace peace, he seems to relish his role as of enforcer and guard for society. I respect him too much to publicly express my disappointment. I just pray that he understands that. I don't know if I agree with that,
Yeah, it's
especially the line about him relishing his role of enforcer.
guard, yes, enforcer, no,
Yeah.
because
I mean, mm,
guard is in protector.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
The word choice is definitely not doing
I
the
mean,
character.
part of me is, keeps in mind that I'm one of those people that actually likes the idea that Superman can have very human flaws. Um, but I mean, I don't know. I think Enforcer is a little bit too much, especially for this sort of mainline portrayal of Superman.
Enforcer also makes him sound like a cop. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and, and that just rubs me the wrong way. Superman is not a cop.
yeah.
Um,
Like, I mean, there are literal space cops in the DC universe, and you want to pin that on Superman? No.
no,
Like,
no.
so, and even then, the literal space cops in the DC universe are continually called out for how corrupt they are.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not. It's
just,
not. Yeah.
it's the whole point of that Green Lantern block that we did. Anyway, moving on. So yes, we land in Greece. People are there to greet them because actual person from Greek mythology here.
Actual
Um,
versus Greek mythology. Um, and I love sort of again how much this issue in particular starts to really play around with like the family aspect
mhm,
as well. Like, because Julia's with her family who are still in Greece, and that's who they're going to meet, and it's like the entire sequence of them landing and just getting off the plane is great.
mhm.
Um, you have a close family friend of Julia's, Stav. Fuck, I don't know Greek names.
I would it's Stavros. I don't know.
Stavros. I wanted to say
Stavros.
Stavros, but I'm like,
That's how I was reading it. I don't know.
yeah. Um, uh, and just they have a lot of fun. I love the mother's daughter dynamic between Julia and Vanessa here,
Mhm.
where Julia speaks and it's like, oh, in Greek, baby. Oh, never mind. Um,
Meanwhile, there's this guy watching to the side. He looks very nervous. He says he thinks to himself, she's too well guarded, but I have to reach her, to talk to her, to warn her, as this sort of demonic looking cat watches her in
a bird is
a
watching her from a
silhouetted bird.
tree, and
Um,
it's
yeah.
very creepy.
Yeah.
And there's some really nice juxtaposition with just like a brass band playing for the arrival because, you roll out the red carpet for
Hmm.
someone from Greek mythology showing up.
Yeah.
Um,
Meanwhile, back in Boston, we catch up with Mindy Mayer. I
and her
want to know.
secretary,
I want to know what you made of this scene, not knowing what was coming.
I was like, oh, part of me's like, oh no, her mask is cracking.
Mm,
Like she
yeah.
needs some self-care because she's lashing out to those around her.
Hmm.
'Cause she's a character that like I really shouldn't have fallen in love with, but I did. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. She's great. She's so great, and especially given what's coming, I love her even more. But yeah.
yes.
Anyway, yeah. So once again, we go back to Greece. We see this mysterious figure with very long nails, holding a gold chalice. It seems. Um, Go
Uh,
ahead. Sorry.
yeah, a Grecian cup.
Yeah.
If the princess does violate your domain, then we shall deliver her to you in pieces. This I swear by the soul of Hecate. And then, ooh, what does this mean? Um, which I'm gonna say it. I forgot, because this is Greek mythology inspired. We have the whole of Greek mythology to draw upon.
Mhm.
Um, which is interesting. So I didn't realize who was going to be the villain.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Because I was just like, ooh, new villain. This is going to be fun. Uh,
Hmm.
it's obviously not going to be Cheetah again because why would it? Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, the next
Uh,
morning, uh,
uh, the Acropolis. I guess this is
Acropolis.
Okay, fuck it. I'm gonna fucking kill you, Jacob. Anyway,
So this is it's the ruins of the Parthenon in
fuck off.
Athens.
Okay, fuck it, whatever. Anyway, so Diana and the Capitalises come to visit the what is it, Acropolis?
Acropolis, yeah.
Acropolis.
It
Um,
literally means like city on a hill, I think.
okay. Then can we
Uh,
just say that?
we can call it that.
Okay. Um, anyway, they all visit here. There's a lot of great like inner monologue here about what seeing all this means to Diana. It's very cool. They go to visit a bunch of other places. You want to read them off? I could do this one. Hill of the Muses. There we go. I could do that one.
He'll, uh, yeah,
What is this one?
uses
Hephaestium.
Hephaestium.
Okay, I didn't do too bad on that one.
Yeah,
Okay. Uh,
Heraion,
okay.
and the Temple of Apollo in Delphi or Delphi.
Okay, I could have done that one.
Yeah. Well,
And Lesbos. Is that how you say?
Lesbos.
Yes,
Yes,
I got it. Yes,
yes.
haha. Anyway,
Where Sappho comes from.
cool.
Uh,
Anyway, but yeah, so we visit all those places. Um, we go out to the something sea, Ionials.
yeah, Ionian. I think that's an N that for some reason looks like an is
That is
lettered to also look like an L.
that's weirdly lettered. Huh.
Yeah, that's John Costanza. You did a weird thing with your N there.
Anyway, so yeah, they're out on this boat. They're traveling the waters. Meanwhile, that mysterious long nailed hand is looking at Diana through this like almost like crystal ball thing.
And you know
Um,
what? This feels kind of like a horror movie a little bit. Like
mhm. Oh, you could
there,
do something really cool with this, especially with like the island of Circe and all that. Like that, like
yeah.
there's some cool stuff you could do here. I mean, hell, I just flipped to the next cover. Like that's a fucking horror movie cover. Anyway, so meanwhile on the ship, through all this, Diana falls down,
Collapses
she
because
collapses,
she's
she faints. Um, and we'll pick up on that next time. Meanwhile, on this island, out across the waters,
it's
um,
peaceful. There's a bunch of sheep, and
mhm,
you think it's sheep. What could go wrong? Some shepherds are called away. They find a body that's been torn apart.
mhm,
It's like there's no wolf track. There's only us and our sheep. And we
mhm.
zoom in on a single sheep with a glowing red eye,
Which
which is a
is
fucking terrifying image.
Yeah. And then you go to the cover of the next issue, which is number 18, and like, my God, look at that.
Like,
That's gorgeous. And the
look,
fact that
this
they
could
only
be
chose
played like
Diana
the
and
Wicker Man.
the fact that they chose only Diana and Vanessa to be at the center of that cover around these horrible silhouetted monsters, like, looks so fucking cool. I love
And
that.
the use of shadows on this cover is just
Oh yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Uh,
It's you know what? This might be my favorite cover in the collection.
very. It's definitely
It's
up
either
there.
this or 22 that the cover comes from.
Yes.
Um,
Uh,
anyway, so all right, okay. I gotta tell you, I don't love this plot line. So a bunch of the gods are together, Zeus and Poseidon and Hades.
the first page is basically let's recount the creation of the gods from Kronos. Blah blah blah. It's a story that a lot of people have
Mhm,
heard before. Um, and it's basically a lot of this is the gods are still trying to argue, uh, around, where do the gods go when they die? Which is this idea of could the gods die? Could, um, could, could Diana bring them back? Uh, you know, or could we form a new Olympus? Which Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus, who are sort of just our big main three big deities of Greek mythology, uh, join forces and use their powers to seal a scroll for golden light, and it is good. Um, it's all kind of set up for basically where this collection is going. Uh,
mhm. I
but
mean, sort of
it's
doing the same thing that a lot of the last collection did, where it's just having these like very short scenes in the previous arc to set up the next arc.
yes,
You know,
and it's
uh,
and it's a good scene. Don't get me wrong. It's just
just I want to find out about the evil lambs. That's it.
you gave us an evil sheep,
Evil
Perez.
sheep, fucking whatever they are.
Or a lamb, sheep, whatever. It's an adorable, fluffy animal that shouldn't be evil.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want to see more of them, and that's but here we are. Anyway, Creatures of the Dark is the name of this story. Still inked by Dick Giordano.
Giordano, I think. Yeah.
Giordano, yeah. But yeah, Diana wakes up from her collapse. She's in this hospital room. She wakes up around Julia and Vanessa and Stavros, I believe.
Yes.
Um,
Um, you know, the doctor wants to prescribe something. Diana refuses because she doesn't use drugs. It's like, okay, well, then there's nothing else we can do. You just need rest. Uh, and there's just this very two panels between Diana and Vanessa, and they're great. Like, Vanessa gives her back her tiara and lasso, and they hug, and there's just a lot there in just this relationship done
mhm,
very, very slowly. Diana
yeah.
finds out from Mr. Theophilus Venturus and his nephew Demetrius. Uh, Perez is having fun with these names. You can
He
kind
really
of
is.
tell.
He really
Uh,
is.
uh, I mean, at least he never does the Dick of Man Island thing. Um, but yes, a local boy was killed by a wolf, and people are saying that a mage did it. Uh, you know, or a curse did it, which is, it's all superstitious, but it's a stupid myth, says the child.
Mhm.
Um, but of course, we readers know better. It's not going to be a myth. Um, he offers Diana, his library, so she can learn about the island and Greece in general, and invites them all over for dinner. Meanwhile, the nurse is listening at the door, um, and goes outside to a mysterious man who declares the Amazon must die. It's like, oh, you'll tell the mistress of my loyalty, Angelina. She already knows. You shall be well rewarded. And his eyes are burning red. Uh, which is again just all of the use of red for eyes in this in these couple of issues is just
Mhm.
great.
And the fact that they're usually like just this completely blank red, like
Yeah,
there's no shading or anything on it. Like it's I like it. It's cool.
it's meant it brings out just the inhuman nature.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
a couple of
Um,
lovebirds look on mysteriously, and that just portends of dangerous things to come.
mhm.
So we get some nice relief of Diana going to this this home, uh, meeting uh, uh, meeting Julia's parents, uh, who are both delightful.
Yeah.
Like they're like everybody's grandparents. Like they argue with each other, but you can tell that it's like they love each other because they've been married for like 80 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, uh, her father asks Diana, "Oh, you like fishing, don't you? I'll take you fishing someday." Uh, and it's just this really sweet scene. Like they're going to be making food, um, and they're going to uh, Stavros and Julia's father are going to go out on their boat to fish before dinner a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
They take Julia's father out to the car, and Stavros sees another one of these Themysciran letters on there attached to the windshield.
I think
Um,
this is just supposed to be regular Greek.
oh,
I
is it?
think.
Okay, sorry.
I
Oh, I mean,
think.
okay, interesting.
Yeah. I recognize the characters, but I have no idea what it says because I
Hmm.
don't speak Greek.
I can't imagine you would. Anyway, over on the island here, again, mysterious woman is plotting.
A lot of shading, a lot of
Yes,
shadows. Uh,
some great inks.
yes, so some gradings and great colors. Like
Hmm.
a lot, the blues and the purples really make it feel mystical, but also make it feel weird. Like the flash of the skulls under her feet,
Yeah.
uh, just the imposing figure of Miklos, um, standing in front of her, um, and she is very and this mistress is just calling everyone to her. Um,
Hmm. Meanwhile, we get a very nice scene between Diana and Julia here.
uh, just discussing Julia's past,
Hmm.
and
Which is
uh,
it's nice to see more of throughout this specific couple issues.
yes, that they, that she loved her husband. Uh, he died sadly. Um, you know,
But yeah, um, over to what Stavros is doing.
yes, which is in a small village. Uh, you know, where he's basically trying to confront whoever sent the note, which was a death threat.
Hmm.
It's a shame that we don't get it translated, um, and that the
Yeah.
witch on the island will kill her, um, and that she's been killing people. Um,
Hmm.
it wasn't superstition that killed them, and
Hmm.
it's again, this is inked in black. Like
Yeah.
this feels like a horror film. These couple of
Yeah,
issues,
it's great.
like
Like it would just make a really nice like I don't know, just solo little Wonder Woman project.
yeah,
Just these like 3 issues in the middle here. They're so
someone
good.
get to the DC animated division and have them just take these couple of issues.
Yeah, I can see it being a good like hour-long film.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
make it a film. Um,
Anyway, so yeah, the next day, Stavros is hanging out with I guess one of his students, right? Yeah,
uh,
I'm not a student, but like I don't know. I mean, he calls Stavros professor. We haven't really
yeah,
touched on that though.
yeah. His basically a student, and Vanessa comes. His student has a gun and is like on
As you
edge.
do,
It's
as
like
you
no, no,
do.
no. It's just Vanessa. She's come to use the phone. It's like well, we have to let her in. She won't arouse suspicion. Um, And meanwhile, Julie and Diana have been brought to a mansion, where the library that Diana was going to do some research in is. Um,
They're invited inside. They're dressed in these very nice dresses, I guess. Um, as they're invited inside, we a dead body is brought in,
yeah,
as you
his
do.
nephew,
Yeah,
who
that was right.
is
Demetrios,
yes,
Demetrios, whatever you say it. Um,
who he
yeah,
was
so he's found dead.
killed killed by rebels.
Yes, and oh god, what's his name?
Theophilus.
Theophilus. That's it. He starts to go like feral.
He goes he goes
Um,
feral and he and a bunch of other people start turning into basically were creatures.
mhm. All
Um,
possessed by this mysterious long fingernailed hand. Um, that's like watching over them all through this like pink crystal ball.
And this whole let the slaughter begin.
Mhm.
Uh, it, it-
Julia and Diana begin to make their escape. They start driving away, but Diana goes back inside. Or no, oh no, so as they pass by Stavros's house, it's on fire. And Vanessa's in there, so Diana goes in to try to save her. She gets Vanessa out of there
um,
and leaves Vanessa with Julia as she goes over to the island where all this trouble is being caused. Um, she's attacked by this like evil demonic like vulture creature.
yeah, I think it's supposed to be almost like an eagle too. Like uh, it's giant, and they find
Oh, that's right. Oh, Diana's knocked back down to Vanessa, where we basically get the in issue realization of the cover, which still looks very nice.
a bunch of
Um,
just horrific were creatures, uh, basically coming, to attack them. Vanessa being the lure, to kidnap them, um, and Diana tries to fight them off, and it is a brutal sequence.
mhm.
Like,
But eventually, she's attacked by this red beam that we learn was sent by Cersei, who is the surprise, not so surprise villain of this story. She's revealed half dressed
half
um,
dressed because
with
she's a femme fatale,
I mean
basically.
like she's drawn like an actual fucking Greek goddess, you know, like
Yeah,
it's
well,
you know that's yeah it
I mean,
works.
she is a figure out of Greek myth, so
Yeah,
uh,
so it works, I'd say.
so it works. And her
Yeah,
big thing in Greek myth was turning men into pigs.
I did not know that. All
Yeah,
right then.
it's in the
Oh
Odyssey.
wait,
It's
no,
fascinating.
wait, yes, I did know that. But
Yeah.
so there's an episode of Justice League Unlimited where they use Cersei and she transforms Batman into, or no, Wonder Woman into a pig. And Batman is out to save her, and
Oh, see.
it's great, and it somehow ends in Kevin Conroy singing, and it's brilliant.
Okay.
Um,
Now I need. I mean, I can.
I'm
I know I
telling
can
you,
watch
you
this
need to watch
show.
these fucking shows.
Yes, yes, I do, because that is. I want to hear Kevin Conroy sing now.
It's
Uh,
great. It's a great scene. Anyway, so also Zatanna's in it, so you know, just that.
oh, that makes it even more fun.
Yeah. So anyway, so so we kick off issue 19 now. Great cover here. Illustrating Cersei with like Julia and Vanessa and all of them in this ball.
Crystal Ball.
She,
It's also taking influence, I think, from the Wicked from the Wizard of Oz, just a little bit.
oh, I could see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. The way
Which
you write down to like the way the layer is sort of drawn. Yeah,
yeah, like,
I get that.
and the loved ones in the crystal ball. Uh,
Yeah, that's cool.
and they refer to her as a witch several times.
Anyway, so
Uh,
actually, this issue opens on I guess, sort of a recap. Um,
yes.
yeah, like we don't actually like the first page here is just a redrawing of the sequence from the last issue. Diana's attacked again. Meanwhile, Julia gets to Vanessa.
Oh yeah, there is. Well, yeah. And there's narration over it of Julia trying to snap Vanessa out of her sort of trance.
Mhm.
Um,
They meet up with these sort of freedom fighters
uh,
who are fighting against what's going on in this island.
yeah,
Uh,
basically these monsters. We didn't even comment on it to keep Vanessa safe. Vanessa did the whole stay inside the circle of safety
mhm.
that's often done in Magic,
Which is the lasso of
which
truth in this
the
case.
lasso of truth, which I think I love it. It's
Yeah. And we had a great title for this last issue, The Witch on the
which on the
Island. Very great, very sort of like classic horror. I really like that.
a different
Um,
inker this time
you know,
too.
that's what I would call this overall story, The Witch on the Island. I
The
like
witch,
that.
Wonder Woman, the witch on the island. Make it.
Yeah.
Someone
Oh,
called
I really want to make this now.
someone called Jeff Johns.
This is great. This is really great. Anyway, so yeah, so Wonder Woman is now chained up by Cersei. Um, and Cersei like is sort of like laying out what she's done to everyone on this island, and
Who she
how,
is.
yeah.
Um,
Wonder Woman begins to try to break free. She kicks away this creature, this servant creature who looks like a centaur, pretty much. Um, Demonic centaur. Yeah, that's how I describe that. But yeah, as she's fighting off these other like servants, Cersei attacks her again.
with
Diana
her
is
magic. While,
Diana
she, while Diana's still chained. Like, Diana is still a badass
oh
while
yeah,
being chained up.
I mean, yeah. What else would you expect? You know.
Yes. Um, but she's overpowered, um, and is, going to be sent to the lab. Um, and, and Cersei's basically like, I'm going to just basically going to destroy you, and it's going to need all of my, all of my attention. So she's having all of her minions basically guard their home. And there's a small chance that she could be rescued. Um, Meanwhile, Julia is examining under a microscope. Uh, uh, I think it's supposed to be a blood sample um, of from one of the creatures. Oh no, it's the scroll that they found.
Mm-hmm.
And Julia's just trying to examine it and decipher it. Um, it and it got it to Vanessa, got it to Julia. So she's just trying to to basically to decipher it.
Mm-hmm.
And she finds out that there's a way they can save Diana, but not with the scroll, with the twine used to bind it. It is laced with a mystic herb known in legend as Moly or Molly, which also a drug used on like party scenes,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is Greeks be tripping.
True.
Uh,
But yeah, meanwhile, Diana is still chained up. She's now in a different room, it seems,
yes,
actually.
and she was brought to the lab,
Mhm. There's
which I
all these
love.
like different like potions and stuff flying around.
It's like a fantasy lab, not like a science lab, and I love the aesthetic.
Yeah. Cersei gives her whole like backstory, how she was even like how she came to be and who she is.
Yes, how she follows the legacy of Hecate,
Mhm.
which
We also get another dark side appearance here, which is kind of
yes,
cool.
we also I think really see, because this would have been see the Hecate as the three who are one almost, um, in one panel as the whole maiden, mother, and crone, which I don't think Perez was intending to foreshadow the Sandman.
But it's there.
It's
I mean,
there.
this would have been published around the same time as the Sandman now.
This has been about I think a year, still a year before Sandman started publishing, because this is
Mm,
still 88, I think.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you're right. Well, no. Didn't didn't this run start like late 87?
Yeah,
So
but this is all of this
maybe.
volume is the 88 issues.
Oh, you're
Uh,
right. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
so still just a little bit before Sandman.
I mean, either way, it's there.
There. Uh, and I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if Gaiman had read this, because it feels like he could have drawn from it very easily.
Mm.
Um, but yes, we get her backstory. Uh, uh, it's an interesting backstory. Uh,
Hmm.
for one, it's drawing on Greek myths, but not just the story of Circe. I think it's also drawing a bit on Medea, who is the other famous Greek sorceress.
Okay.
Um, uh, though I'm not as familiar with Medea in general, because I have not read that play. Because I've not read a whole lot of Greek plays. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. It's again, having another femme fatale who is a match for Diana. Like,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
what's been especially interesting is that like all the villains Perez has set up have been a match for Diana.
Yeah, yeah. In certain cases, like Ares is more like um more of a mental challenge, but like everyone else is like physically able to like take her on head on. And in Cersei's case, she's not like, like she's not physically strong, but her abilities
Her abilities make
are
her
what make her
dangerous.
physically stronger. So I like that. Anyway, yes, we get her whole backstory here. Meanwhile, Julia and Stavros have officially joined the resistance. They're fucking packing. Like,
Once again, audience, I will tell you, Julia Capitalis deserves to be adapted, and deserves to be adapted as able to carry a motherfucking gun.
yes,
Like,
she. This is at least the third different kind of gun we've seen her with.
she is meeting up with resistance fighters and doing an onslaught against an army of magical creatures.
And
I'm sorry.
taking on a character from Greek myth. Like,
Yes. How the fuck
I
has
love
she
it.
not been adapted before?
I love it. I love that you've attached yourself so much to this character.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. How has she not just been used in every Wonder Woman comic since? Like,
Yeah, it's a mystery. I mean, there are Wonder Woman runs my jumps to the Brian Azzarello run where there's like barely any regular human characters and it's about like the Greek mythology characters.
still, if you're gonna do a Wonder Woman run and you're gonna have humans, make Julie a character and keep her a
Mhm.
badass.
Yeah,
This is the hill I am dying on.
I
Because
mostly agree.
she deserves it.
But yeah, so Cersei puts Diana in this pool of something. Do they say?
Yeah, I don't really say they. I don't
Just
think
this
they ever say
like
it's
this
to kill her.
orange.
It's to
Yeah,
destroy
yeah,
her and
yeah.
eat her, which is yeah.
As she gets to as she's consumed by this, the resistance members start to break into Cersei's castle. Then, well, not castle, but like a lair.
It's
Um,
basically a castle though.
yeah.
Like again, this is a classic horror movie.
And as Cersei is about to pour the final like drop of what will kill Diana into this orange pool, um, Vanessa shoots, or no, not Vanessa, Julia shoots the cup out of her hand.
It explodes and throws the lasso of truth to Diana, so she gets her powers back.
And she
And
breaks free, and oh, it's great. And Julia just straight goes to kill Cersei.
yeah,
Julia just aims the rifle at Cersei, and Diana blocks the shot. Um,
because if you kill her, our whole world will be doomed.
mhm.
Uh,
Which keep in mind, Diana didn't say don't kill Cersei because whatever killing's wrong. No, she said no. It's only just going to make things worse for us.
it is going to end the world.
Which
Uh,
again, you can do both. I want to continuously repeat this. Like people like say like it's either one or the other. Like you can do badass Diana, who's totally okay with murdering people, and super kind and compassionate Diana.
yes.
These things are compatible. Um, but anyway, yeah. So she saves Cersei. Because of this, Cersei has a chance to trap Julia, but not before, of course. Cersei is called
Theophilus.
the what?
It's Theophilus who then grabs Julia
Mm,
from behind.
yes.
Uh,
And then Cersei is pulled away from the battle. She's dragged away. She says, "What do you know?" And then she vanishes. Um, More on that later. So
well,
yeah,
well, we discover what it is at the end of the page. It
do
was
we? Oh
Hermes.
yeah, oh yeah, oh we do.
It was
Yeah.
a literal Deus Ex Machina.
Yep. Well, I
But
mean, it does at least get addressed later because Hermes is
it gets
pretty
addressed,
consistently throughout the
yes.
rest of this collection. Anyways, yeah. So the resistance fighters celebrate. They all chant "Hail Diana," um, and we go into our epilogue. So Stavros is healing. Um, Julia is calling him. She gets off the phone.
They're at
They
the airport.
they're at the airport. They begin to walk away, but not before, of course, Vanessa arrives with horrible news.
From an
Um,
American newspaper that she's found. Look at the headline: The Daily Times, showbiz shocker, star publicist found slain.
Windy Mayer body
Body
found
found
shot
shot in
in
Boston
Boston office.
office. Okay,
So
so
so.
George Perez, you bastard.
So good.
You
It's so fucking
magnificent
good.
bastard. Also, I blame your wife too, because she helped with the next issue.
That's true. That's true. So on to issue 20. Who killed Mindy Mayer?
And the cover is just like is the front page of a newspaper.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's brilliant. It's so good.
we have our suspects lined up at the bottom of the cover. This glamour shot of Mindy Mayer, and this like almost paparazzi shot.
So I'm curious. So you know I waxed lyrical about Mindy Mayer last episode.
Yes.
And I'm sure when you saw this, you're like, okay, well, I don't know why you love this character so much. She's fucking dead with a few appearances under her belt, you know?
Well, I was already kind of liking this character because, like, she's fun.
Hmm.
She's cool, and maybe she gets an arc of becoming a better person.
Yeah,
And then
but
she's fucking dead.
then she's dead, and and I understand how it could be difficult to see why I love this character so much. But after reading this issue and an issue that comes not long after it, I'm sure it becomes very obvious. So let's get into this. So we open on a very minimal dialogue, first couple pages. Diana's hunting down these thugs down the street. We don't know who they are, but Diana's pissed. She goes after them. This guy pulls out some like ninja knives or whatever.
Well, we're
I
in
don't,
Chinatown,
yeah.
so
And she destroys the knives. This guy's on the run still. She grabs him with the lasso of truth. He says, "Please, what do you want?" She goes, answers, and then we get the title page: "Who Killed Mindy Mayer? Tales from the Front Lines" by Edward in Delicato.
in Delicado,
Um,
yeah.
Chapter 8: Who Killed Mindy Mayer. Very oh, what's the name of the story from Return to Super or Reign of the Supermen?
Um,
Fuck, well, you know what I'm
oh
talking
god,
about
it's
though.
it's the Ron Troop one.
Yeah. Oh,
Shit,
that
what's it
one's
called?
fuck.
Uh,
I can't think of what it is now.
isn't it like something about Clark Kent, isn't it?
No, 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 no. It's like a one-word title, I think.
Uh, what I don't remember what it's called.
But anyway, but yeah, so this is written and illustrated by George Perez, based on an idea by Carol Flynn, who you already called out,
It's his
uh,
wife.
and finished by Bob McLeod. McLeod. I think this is
Yeah,
the first issue that
McLeod
he.
or McLeod, I'm not sure.
This is the first issue that he inks.
And I think he
Um,
inks most of the rest of these issues.
yeah.
I think he's the main inker for now.
Yeah.
Um,
So we find out how Mindy was found. She was shot in the head. She was found in her office, killed.
and and a lot of the rest of this issue is structured like a chapter in a book,
Mhm.
which very much could have been a bad decision. Like we talked about it in Time Passes with the weird lettering. We've talked about it throughout our Death and Return of Superman episodes whenever we had to talk about a Roger Stern issue where things get wordy. But here it really is telling the story in addition to the visuals. Uh,
Mhm.
it very much also just allows the dialogue. It doesn't allow the actual text and the dialogue to clash.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah,
They work very much side by side. Yeah.
yes. Uh,
Um. So yeah. So Mindy was found slain. Um. Uh. Oh God. It's a striking visual right from the start because you just see the bottom half of her body, blood
yes.
on the floor, lying there, just awful, fucking awful. But yeah,
And we have some suspects. Um, we have her secretary, Chrissy, who recognizes Steve London, the art director, who was fired a week ago
mhm,
from a shot from a police sketch. Um, and we're really following our detective character,
mhm, yeah,
uh, Edward in Delicato, who as a character, as a point of view character, he's a character we haven't met before, but you already know a lot about him and that he actually cares, uh,
mhm,
as he's uncovering this mystery of who killed Mindy Mayer. Um, we find out Steve London couldn't have done it if he was telling the truth in the interview because he didn't even own a gun and it wouldn't get his job back. He just wanted his job back, which is why he went and saw Mindy Mayer. Um, he recounts a board meeting that Tuesday,
mhm.
where all the departments head were
And
called in.
really interesting. We see here how Mindy is drawn in these flashbacks. We see her like not quite as bad as she was in that one scene that we mentioned briefly 2 issues ago. Um, but still like you see her like slightly more disheveled, just not as well put together, as she starts to lose her cool with the rest of her staff. I think it's just a nice little touch. It's
Yes,
just the way she's drawn.
we're immediately brought to Skeeter LaRue,
Hmm.
who is backing like, oh, he's kind of a bastard.
Yeah.
Uh, and she's pissed because they've lost 7 corporate, and 15 individual accounts. And her lawyers have informed her that no less than 153 lawsuits have been filed against us.
Hmm.
And it's she has a right to be pissed because these charges are attempt to fraud, breach of contract, and embezzlement. Great, and here's a great one: reckless endangerment. And I'm just like, ooh, she's not a woman to be reckoned with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and she is looking essentially for the scapegoat. So she fires Steve. And then Jenny Hayes, the woman he was with way back in his way back in issue
16 or
15 and
15,
16.
15. Yeah, 15,
Yeah,
16.
took it harder. So they went out bar hopping and got super fucking drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Meanwhile, in Chinatown at night, Diana goes after this guy here. Um, what is it? Choi Industries. That's right. Um, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So,
Um,
let's see. Oh yeah,
and she's
and
looking for Skeeter LaRue.
mm-hmm,
Uh, and it's like you must find him. Uh, and she's basically just begging.
mm-hmm.
But basically, his
And then
bodyguard.
to the point where she eventually wraps the lasso of truth around him and asks where Skeeter is. He says in a small warehouse in Bedford. This is the address, and then she puts him to sleep. And so she flies away. We go back to our narration then from the detective. I can speak.
Detective to discuss, Denny, his interview with Denny Hayes, um, who he basically sets up, Skeeter LaRue, who is a drug dealer, peddling cocaine, um, and basically using the client list of the company to make his drug deals, and it included Mindy Mayer. And at this point, I'm like, okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because let me just go into a little bit of my thought process here. Because this is the 80s, the war on drug is in full swing.
Mm-hmm.
And so
So
we
you can
can,
tell immediately, like from this page alone, like what this issue is going to do,
yes, uh,
but so effectively,
so
like
effectively. And it never
oh my
goes preachy, don't do drugs, kids.
no, no. I mean, at the same time, it's not wrong in what it's saying, and that
No,
is still what it's saying,
it doesn't feel very war
No,
on
it doesn't
drugsy.
feel like it's preaching to you at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we see her and Steve at the bar going over how, the Coke and the Wonder Woman fiasco made her crazy.
The whole thing with the Wonder Woman fair and the Silver Swan and all that.
Yes, all a thing. This, and apparently it was all secretly to get a new cocaine shipment.
Hmm.
Um, and she showed Mindy the papers, um, and Mindy lashes out. So, Miss Hayes, what are you after? A payoff? Mr. London's job, perhaps? Um, no, Miss Mayor, that ain't it at all. Isn't not ain't. God save me from illiterate artists.
I love that. But yeah, they have a falling out, um, and she sort of Denny starts to spiral a bit more. Then,
Steve rushes away from her after being told that Mindy was just laughing at basically his girlfriend.
mhm,
Um, um, and at the time of the murder, she was still at the bar sick, and basically, terrified that she just hanged Steve London.
mhm,
Uh, but then, and the higher ups of the police were sold. But then they decided to do a computer check on Skeeter LaRue. Um, and they find out he really was a sleaze bag. Um, Turns out he's not Southern. He's from New Jersey. I think that's hilarious.
yeah, yeah, and also that you could tell. I guess sort of a comment on how they were writing his dialogue and how over enunciated the accent was.
How everything is meant to be just this over the top completely.
Hmm.
And so at this point, when Wonder Woman gets back from Greece
Hmm.
and basically demands to help with the investigation.
Hmm.
Um,
she then goes out to that warehouse that she was told
in
about.
Bedford, where Skeeter is, you know, uh, surrounded by bodyguards, playing cards, in all armed and dangerous. Um, it's like, oh, they have to protect Mr. Frosty the Snowman because of the cocaine, which it's
Yeah.
a funny joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
They sing Frosty the Snowman as they're going to check because they heard a noise.
Mm,
The singing trails off. Gunfire happens.
Wonder Woman breaks in and goes after Skeeter. Um, um, yeah. She corners him. Continues to tell her story to the Detective Delicato.
Yes, and who the idea, of course, being who killed Mindy Mayer. Um, Interestingly, you have Chrissy, her secretary, bursting out with the idea that Mindy could have been a smuggler. You incompetent, simple-minded idiots. Mindy Mayer may have been many things, but she was not a smuggler. That's as ludicrous as the idea of Steve killing her. Um, so they need to try to prove Steve London's innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And Diana is going to use the lasso of truth, which the captain thinks is nuts. Um, but everyone else is like, right? No, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. It's like bring in the idea is bring in Skeeter LaRue, um, especially because uh, they find Skeeter LaRue over an electric fence.
Yes. And so they asked Wonder Woman about what happened. She had interrogated Skeeter, try to find out what happened. He was, of course, dealing cocaine to Mindy and basically got her addicted. Um, and so they had a fight. They had a falling out, um, and basically this awful idea comes out. Um, Actually, should I wait until the very end? I mean, we're
Let's
at
wait
the
till the
very end.
very end. She picks up a bottle of booze,
Mhm.
slams it over his head.
Yeah. And
Um,
then um
uh,
later well
he
he comes back in with a gun and shoots her and kills her. But she's the way she's drawn here in this moment, she's completely like blacked out, she doesn't even seem to register that he's there. Um so in the middle of this interrogation, um she lets oh yeah, that's right, these guys break in, they start they're Skeeter's men, they start shooting. Skeeter runs away, and that's when he like gets to that electric fence and he dies. um and so we start to wrap everything up, and we find out
that it
the
wasn't Skeeter LaRue who killed Mindy Mayer.
yeah, she was already dead when he shot her.
She had had a
uh
massive cerebral hemorrhage before the assault with the rifle. The
oh
coroner
my god,
attributed it to excessive alcohol and cocaine in her system.
fuck, it's so
And
so
the
fucked.
final paragraph just of the chapter of the book. There were no easy answers to give her. We solved the mystery of who killed Mindy Mayer and learned that it was Mayer herself. The idea of a suicide, even accidental, would never have occurred to an innocent like the princess. At least the hoods she might help in at least the hoods she might help she caught
She caught me, yeah.
might help in springing Steve London, but it seemed almost trivial now. As she soared away into the dawn, I couldn't help but hope that we'd meet again, someplace where there was no need for guns and badges. As I closed the folder on the case, I stared at the photos of Diana and of Mindy Mayer, another beautiful bird who just wanted to keep flying higher until she ran out of sky.
Oh god,
It is a beautiful
so
ending,
so fucking good. Oh
uh,
my god.
and it isn't the last we'll see of Mindy Mayer.
No, no, thankfully.
Because
Just oh man.
we'll we'll see some other things.
Yeah, in the meantime, let's go into Wonder Woman number 21. Get a great cover for this one. Um oh my god. Oh, so feels wrong to continue on from that. Anyway, All right, moving on. So number 21. We open up. Diana wakes up, or no, not Diana. Okay, take the name away. I can't remember her.
Penelope,
Penelope.
who was the Oracle of the Amazons,
Yes.
um, wakes wakes up in terror, screaming gods. Um, the idea is that I think she was having a vision of Morpheus, the god of sleep.
Mm.
And we
Which
have
again, I mean,
again just very
anyway,
close to the Sandman being a thing.
yeah. We go over to Wakefield, Massachusetts. We're coming back from the funeral of Mindy Mayer. Um, everyone's very sad, of course.
Everyone's really taking the death hard. Vanessa kind of looked up to her, as a strong female figure, and
Mhm.
that's kind of shattered because she was on drugs and alcohol, uh, and it's Diana feels partially responsible, and this entire this little scene between Julia and Diana is
Mhm.
another just one of those perfect scenes where Perez gets these characters and gets how to make them work
Mhm.
and gets how they interact. Um, and it's really just a minute. Let's decompress the last couple issues. Because the last few issues have been heavy and nonstop heaviness. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. And we're
Uh,
about to jump right back into that,
yes.
it's not gonna
Uh,
let up. But yeah, Pigeon flies in and Diana gets another letter from Themyscira, um,
Calling her back
calling her
because of
back.
immediate danger.
Mhm.
Um, which you know is very it's very interesting. What's nice is Diana promises she will come back right to Vanessa. Um, yeah, she swears, and we have a tearful leaving man's world scene.
Mhm.
Um,
Which just happens again.
obviously,
Um,
they're getting shorter though.
they are.
Like,
So,
and this one feels appropriate, especially since Perez realizes we're decompressing from the fact that we just killed a major recurring character, and
yeah,
we've had that whole fight with Cersei.
yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so Diana makes her way over to Paradise Island. She's greeted by her fellow Amazons. Um, we learn that they're going to hold a grand meeting between pretty much every Amazon on Paradise Island. Um,
at the
and
altar of Apollo.
and Diana is to be up there with Hippolyta and who's the other one there?
Um, I think it's
I
still Penelope, isn't it?
believe so. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so they're all up there. Um, and
And
they're to be contacted by the gods. And they have
they're
to
praying the gods, praying for strength,
mhm.
and their
And
prayers are answered, and they find the ruin of Olympus.
yes,
Uh,
Diana, Hippolyta, and Penelope are all taken there to commune with the gods. They arrive there. They traverse the ruins of Olympus for a while until they come across this collection of gods. That can't be all of them, right? That can't be
I
all of
mean,
them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, there are 12, so
Okay.
technically,
All right.
but I don't see Ares. Like,
That's true. Well, I
I
guess.
mean, if you do Hestia and Dionysus are supposed to be there, so I guess that's how you get 12 without
Yeah.
Ares. It's a thing. Because the 12 Olympians is not consistent in mythology because we are looking at, several sources from several periods of time.
There we
That's
go.
besides the point. Um,
Anyway, so what they basically say is they want to create a new home for the gods, right? Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. Basically, because of their experiences with the new god of apocalypse, aka Darkseid.
Hmm.
Um, it's so interesting because Darkseid doesn't actually show up, yet you feel his presence throughout this
Hmm.
entire thing.
Yeah.
Um, which is just kind of how powerful he is as a character. Um,
Yeah.
uh, and this whole idea uh, is this idea of Diana and the Amazons to assist them. Um, Basically, the idea is to try to get the world to worship them again. Um, whereas Hermes is like, tell them that, Olympus is to be destroyed. Um, and an argument breaks out,
Hmm.
basically between Hermes and Heracles.
Hmm.
Uh, and this fight is interesting because it's all about this idea that, the gods need to respect their worshippers, um, because, then what need do the worshippers have for the gods? Which is an interesting question, especially since we're in, like, this is the DC universe where there's more than one godly pantheon. Um, like, you have the new gods, you have the Greek gods, I think you also have the Norse gods, technically. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like they're all kind of nebulously floating out there, which um, I has become more and more of a popular thing for like fantasy settings that deal with myth recently, especially,
Mhm.
which I really like. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, um, the entire point is that uh, they are asking essentially basically for Diana to save them,
Mhm.
essentially,
And for Diana to be that link between man and the
and the
Amazons and the
gods.
gods and all that.
Again,
But
strengthening the whole idea of this as Diana. This is Diana's time as an ambassador.
yeah.
Um,
Um, so what they do is they sort of they get a vote from the Amazons. Do they agree with this idea? Um, and the vote is of course in favor of Diana being their ambassador between man and the gods. Um, and so she begins fulfilling her tasks. So she is to destroy Olympus as it exists right now. Um, and I really like this sequence here. You really do see this what Diana is going through in this moment, especially in the way it's drawn.
yeah, and it's not done with a lot. There's very little dialogue.
Hmm.
What dialogue there is essentially from Zeus,
Hmm.
and then just the omnipresent narrator.
Yeah.
Uh,
And pretty much like
and
the only things that Diana says here, right before she starts, she says, "Yes, Lord Zeus," and then as this what meteor comes crashing down, she says, "Gaia, protect me," and she is to sort of redirect this meteor type thing into Olympus and destroy it, destroy what remains of it. Um, and that is that. She makes her way back to Paradise Island then with Hippolyta and Penelope, and that is that. That's the end of that issue.
and we end with this whole idea of we're building a new world to finally allow man to step foot on Paradise Island, because technically no man has stepped foot on Paradise Island yet.
Yeah.
uh,
Well,
Steve
eh,
hasn't technically stepped foot. He crashed. He didn't actually walk,
true.
so it doesn't count. And
I
Heracles is
guess.
a god, so that doesn't count either.
All right.
So yeah. So
Anyway,
we move on
number
to
22 now, which is where the cover of this collection comes from. Very nice cover.
such a great cover.
Yeah.
This is Through Destiny's Door. Uh, and this whole idea is we're going to bring people to man to Paradise Island. Um, Hippolyta's basically gathered the Amazons. Um, uh, Diana has created an official tally. Uh, basically, all the Amazons eventually agree. Yes, we will bring man to Paradise Island.
Mhm.
Uh, and Diana's the one who will decide who gets to come.
Mhm.
Um,
And it's like, gee, I wonder who it's gonna be.
who it's going to be. Well, there are some options. Uh,
Two big options
Two
though.
big options. Uh,
um,
uh,
yeah. Uh, I wait. I forget. I forget what this leads to. What is this page with the?
I
It
don't
says meanwhile.
remember.
I forget what it leads to. Okay, there's a page here where it says, "Meanwhile, space, deep, dark, and infinite. From within the vastness of star-clustered black streaks, a tiny gleaming pinpoint, hurtling through the void faster than light, a silvery orb no bigger than a human fist, but pulsing with a raw, blistering energy beyond mortal measure, propelling it on its long, circuitous, yet can't speak, yet deliberate course." And that's it. Well, I forget what that is.
Is it
What the
something that at
fuck?
least does it get picked up in like volume 3?
I forget.
Because
What is this leading to?
I don't think it leads to anything in this volume. I think this gets dropped in the rest of this, being mainly focused on.
That's a lot of issues to drop that from. What is that?
Yeah.
I forget
Oh
what
wait,
that
wait,
is.
wait. it happens in this issue. Never mind.
Okay, all right,
So
good.
we then have another scene of Themyscira where Diana meets with Helene, or however
I
this.
I was just gonna say Helen.
I think it can't. See, here's the thing: Helen in Greek is just Helen, like spelled like we normally would. So like you have to pronounce the e, I think.
Okay,
Um,
whatever.
and this is an Amazon character we really haven't heard of before. Um,
Mhm. It's mostly just to show that, like, not all Amazons feel the same about letting man on
yes,
their world and
yes.
whatever.
But it's nice. You don't feel like it's going to become like a war between the
Yeah, no,
Amazons.
it's
Like
more just I
it's
disagree with this. I think we will lose our way.
it's a
Uh,
bit of world building.
yeah.
Uh,
Meanwhile, same thing as with the orb. This
there's this
being of
this
light lands in front of this guy sleeping in the woods,
and it takes on his form. Um,
and
so
that's
that's
the end of that. Meanwhile, catching back up with Vanessa at school with Barry and
Barry's a dick.
Barry's dick. This is Lucy Spears that he's met. This is a new
Who's a
girl.
transfer, and
Um, I
he's
gotta
already
fucking say, I love I love this one speech bubble when he introduces Vanessa to Lucy, and Lucy goes, "Hi, Vanessa," and
yeah,
Vanessa's the way the speech bubble is drawn with these like icicles coming
icicles
down from
coming down.
it. I love that. She's like, "Yeah, hi."
So yeah, this is the Barry Vanessa breakup, which
I mean, were they ever really a thing?
no, they weren't. Everyone called it except Vanessa, because
Yeah.
Vanessa was, having a crush. But Eileen is there to support her and be happy.
And
Uh,
then we get a nice little scene here because, Julia has a life. Um, and this is Mr. Westlake. This is a geometry teacher at Vanessa's school.
Initially,
And
they're just discussing Vanessa's geometry exam.
mhm. And
Um,
then he begins hitting on her, but
yes,
like respectfully, I
but
think, you know?
it's flirting. It's not.
Well, yeah, but like,
Yeah,
not like,
it's not creepy. It's
yeah,
not
exactly.
creepy. Hey, babe. Like it's not creepy. Typical man trying to pick up random woman. It's
Yeah.
just two people kind of hitting it off a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like it's like, oh, please, Mr. Westlake, don't apologize if my inference is correct. I must say I'm rather flattered. Are you asking me if I date? Um,
And once again on how much I love the way George Perez writes and draws Vanessa. We see her walking in this like completely white panel with just this thought bubble, a whole bunch of scribbles in her head.
because it's just the
And I love
embarrassment of,
that.
oh God, my mom might date a teacher.
It's so great. I love that. And she's wearing like these green sunglasses the whole time, and they drive away, and it's great.
Yeah, we learned
Uh,
Mr. Westlake's name is Horace, and they do set up a date, and it's nice.
mhm.
And let Julia date. Let,
Yeah,
let it happen.
yeah.
Um,
Meanwhile, whatever's going on here, I seriously forget where all this is leading. I don't remember what's going on.
um, it's
Go
the
ahead, tell me, Jacob. Where's
sphere.
this all leading? What's going on?
I don't entirely know. The sphere is searching for Diana. Um, I think it gets resolved in this issue.
I
I
hope
think
so. Moving on. Julia and Vanessa are driving home from school.
they're
Um,
stuck in traffic. Vanessa's, just a little.
Pissed. She's just pissed.
And
Um,
Julia is a genuinely good mom. Like, talk to me about Barry, and then it
yeah.
didn't work. And they're interrupted by Diana lifting their car up and flying them home, which great image and great timing, um, which I love. And you
What's
also see the mysterious figure who was, the orb was sucked into him and turned into that guy, just watching them.
mhm.
Uh,
Oh, wait, I know who this is.
yeah,
Okay, they're not into the last two issues, right?
yeah, right. Again, it's
Okay, that's right. Okay, that makes sense. I guess I never connected them because I was only reading like an issue every other day while I was rereading this, so I don't think I immediately connected those two plot points.
This whole idea of, he's inducing terror
Yeah.
incarnate.
Yeah, well,
Um,
also just the way his eyes are drawn
yeah,
here.
and I think the cloaked figure is Hermes, I think. Because
That
he's
that would
doing
make that would make sense.
two
Yeah,
meanwhiles.
because Hermes is no longer doing anything in the main plot.
Yes.
Anyway, so Diana delivers the good news that she's going to bring Juliet and Vanessa to Paradise Island.
And they're calling it Themyscira now, which I
Yeah,
think is an
I
interesting
mean,
change.
I still like calling it Paradise Island.
Yes. I mean, they use both. So it's basically the same thing. And of course, they agree. It's like, oh, we're going to do it this weekend. It's like, oh, okay, oh, Mom, gee, I guess you'll have to cancel with Mr. Westlake, huh?
It's so
And
great.
I feel kind of validated for Vanessa because it'd be fucking awkward having your mom date a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But also, Julia's allowed the social life.
Yeah, she can have a life.
But Diana goes to Hanscom Air Force Base to obviously invite Steve and Etta. And Steve and Etta are currently, they can't be contacted.
Mm-hmm.
He started a new job, in security.
Did we even talk about the plot line about Steve quitting the Air Force?
We didn't.
We didn't. Well, Steve quit the Air Force.
Yes. It's a very nice plot line, but it doesn't.
Well, it's not very present. Like,
no, it's not prominent.
He doesn't get enough scenes where he talks about it. So
it's a nice background element.
Yeah. Anyway, so Diana leaves. Meanwhile, once again, the orb is possessing people and being an orb and attacking people, and that's about it. And then Diana prepares for the journey to Themyscira.
She's gonna bring Julia, Julia and Vanessa, and we end with her telling Julia that I love you, which I
also Diana leaves a message for Steve and Etta. That's about it. It's just nice.
Yes.
But yeah, so and we had a great page. The day she too will be allowed to journey through Destiny's Door, and it's really nice. So yeah, and that brings us to the Wonder Woman annual. So this is the I like the cover of this, but it's also the back cover of the collection.
Yes. I don't think it would have worked as like a front cover of the collection.
No. But
there's way too much white space.
Yeah.
We get a
nice showcase of characters that have appeared throughout the series and who are here as well. But yeah, we open up the annual on a Brian Boland page. Brian Boland is back. We haven't read anything with Brian Boland art in a really long time, since literally the second episode of the podcast. So that's nice.
Yes, and this annual is like other annuals. I really like that it's just a bunch of short stories.
But it has a very nice narrative through line.
It does. It's very smart. Because I think some annuals that we've covered before, mainly like the Bloodlines one, stop the plot in their tracks.
Look, I really want to collect all of Bloodlines someday. I want to get all the individual issues, and I want to
and the 2-issue miniseries that it apparently leads to.
Yeah, that's what I need. That's what I need to read it all. So this annual's name is Amazons. We get a nice opening page again drawn by Brian Boland. He'll also do a page later on. And the whole thing is written by George Perez, drawn by various artists,
lettered by Todd Klein. But yeah, and this is an annual, so this has two editors, Karen Berger and Art Young, and we start with the prologue, and
it's just Diana taking Vanessa and Julia over to Themyscira. They fly through this massive storm that Diana goes through every time. Julia's fascinated by it. Vanessa's terrified. And then they arrive at the royal palace, and Hippolyta is there to greet them. We see this figure standing towards the back with white hair. That Julia thinks to herself that she looks familiar.
It's a very distinctive design. And there's basically a parade and praise. These couple of pages were drawn by Chris Marinin and Willie Blyberg. Willie Blyberg being the inker, who I think has taken over from Bob McLeod at this point in the actual Wonder Woman title. because they keep going through inkers like crazy.
They do. But yeah, we go into part 1 of the story, The Diving Bird, illustrated by Arthur Adams.
Where basically there's going to be an Amazonian diving competition.
Yes.
And
Vanessa goes in and dives and
does a cannonball, which I think is adorable. Again, it's very sweet.
Now this character's name is Euboa, I believe.
Yes, Euboa.
Yes, I got it. Fuck yeah.
We saw her in the first volume in those early issues. She and we get a flashback to baby Diana.
Yeah, who refuses to dive and instead just flies above everyone.
Flies above it.
She's the only Amazon that can naturally do that.
Yes. Until she sort of as a child sees Euboa trip the champion who is the champion diver of the Amazons and fall into the water.
Mm-hmm. Diana flies in after her and goes into the water.
Meets Nereids, who are sort of water spirits, goddesses of the sea.
I fucking love the way this underwater page is drawn.
Yes,
I love the way little Diana's drawn underwater. It looks so nice.
It's nice. I like the designs of the Nereids too, because again, it's a place where the artist gets to have their own interpretation because there isn't necessarily like visual evidence from like primary sources that we have.
But then Diana emerges and sees that Euboa is all right, and that's Diana's little kid lesson, and that's about it. We move on. Part 2, Dust, drawn by John Bolton. So yes, we go into this one. This is not one of my favorite stories in this annual. It's all right.
No, it's all right. None of the stories are bad. They're all nice. They all do something to flesh out Amazonian culture and history a little bit. And I think you need that. Yeah, you really need that. Just in general.
Well, especially because this collection as a whole has really strayed away from the Amazon plot, and
yes,
it's nice to have this here.
Yes. But Diana meets with her mother, who is kind of sad, is just kind of musing on sad memories of Antiope, and learning their lessons, and we get a flashback to Hippolyta and Antiope, who were that a former queen of Lemnos was searching for them, and searching for their help. That their island kingdom was essentially this is essentially retelling a bit of Jason and the Argonauts. It's like the captain of the Argo came to the island and charmed them, which is that's certainly a thing. And there was passion for the queen, and she was abandoned like so many Greek heroes do, and abandoning her son, and she's asking the Amazons for help, and Antiope was proudly going to conduct her back to her royal throne after she was usurped. They are then attacked by a harpy. The Amazons fight it off. Harpies being savages, and they find everyone on Lemnos being basically destroyed. And the queen just dies, and it leaves sort of a mystery as everything's crumbled to dust. And it's quite sad. And it's quite musings on like it's sort of adding a little bit of foreboding of what could happen when man and Amazon actually meet more than just a couple of people that Diana trusts.
Yeah. But that brings us into part 3, the first statue, illustrated by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. We go into this one. We get a God, who is this? I can't think of who this is.
Philippus,
that's it. Fuck me. That's her name. So they're looking at a statue of Egeria, I believe. Egeria.
Yes.
Okay.
The first captain of the guards.
Yes. and we get her story here. So she was the first captain of the guards. They were attacked one day by a fucking demon skeleton horse thing. Uh,
Coming from the doorway of doom. That thing the whole challenge of the gods thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Uh, you get some great art here.
Mhm.
Yeah, but yeah, a horse skeleton. I'm curious, like what it's trying to reference, because I don't think anything in mythology
Nah,
had
it's
horse skeleton.
that's just a mean motherfucker. That's all
Yeah,
it is. So it comes out, it attacks Igaria, eventually, or no, sorry, it attacks it. They unleash these like large wooden pillars on it. It seals up the doorway.
but
Um,
and Agaria lays down her life in the process,
mhm,
uh, and basically all the Amazons are vigilant in front of Doom's doorway until, of
mhm.
course, Diana saves the day by completing the challenge of the gods.
Yeah.
Um,
And then it ends a nice little scene where Vanessa takes a picture of the statue, and it's
of
cool.
the statue of Diana Rockwell.
Yeah. But anyway, going into part four, into the world go forth, drawn by Kurt Swan and Bob McLeod, who is inking once again for the story.
Yes, and Kurt Swan is a legendary artist I associate with Superman. Like
Hmm.
like the 80 years of Superman, half the stories are like drawn by Kurt Swan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a lot of them you see Kurt Swan, Kurt Swan,
Oh,
Kurt
cool.
Swan.
Nice.
Um, yeah, and we get a little. This whole story is essentially a little more of Julia's backstory,
Yeah, I really like this one.
going
So
into depth on how they met, they
yeah.
got married, they did archaeology together, which it's this whole page, but it's very sweet.
Mhm.
Um, I love this. David was an incorrigible punster and wanted to name her Nessie after a Scottish legend we were investigating. Um, we compromised on Vanessa because she found out she was pregnant while they were investigating the Loch Ness monster,
Mhm.
um, which just adds another nice layer to Nessie's room. That
Yeah.
entire thing. Um,
But yeah, but meanwhile in the library of the mascara, the figure that Julia recognized when they first arrived there enters, and they begin telepathically communicating with each
yes,
other.
yes.
And
This
this
woman's name is Pythia.
Yes, and Pythia begins to restore this memory in Julia's mind, of when Julia what is it, was with her parents on a boat, out in a
As a
storm,
toddler,
and
and
she fell out into the water, was rescued by the Amazons, specifically by Pythia, um, and brought to Paradise Island, and eventually sent back to her people, and sent back to her parents. Uh,
memory erased.
mhm,
And it's like, oh, everything's connected. Everyone that Diane has met and made friends with is at least a little bit connected to Paradise Island somehow.
mhm.
Which I don't know how much if I really like that.
I think I actually really like that. I mean, if it were like she spent like most of her life on Paradise Island and she didn't know, then like that would be an issue. But it wasn't that long.
Yeah.
It's a very small part of Julia's life, and I think it's nice to just have that there for a little bit. It's cool.
Yes. Uh,
We move into part five, Flight of the Icarus, drawn by Ross Andrew and George
George
Perez.
Perez.
So there you
Uh,
go. But yeah, I'm guessing what Ross Andrew probably inked this.
Probably inked this, except I think in the book's credits, Perez is credited with inking as
Oh, okay.
well. So
Hmm.
Perez might have just done the inks for this.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the Amazons are around a campfire, and it's time for Diana to narrate a story about Trevor, because
Yeah.
um, his mother wants to know more about the son of Diana Rockwell. Um, but yes, uh, this story is basically going uh, to Steve examining a crashed plane, which he believes must be sabotaged, but he just has to figure out how. Um, So he eventually, uh, and the plane is called the Icarus, being, you know, a reference to the story of Icarus, who flew close to the sun and whose wax
Mm-hmm.
wings melted, and Icarus plummeted to his death. Um, so Steve and Etta, uh, the next morning, essentially, Steve goes to take the plane out. As Etta's at control, and uh, Steve begins, uh, you know, basically gets the plane is in fact sabotaged with Steve in it. Diana appears at air control. Etta pistol whips the guy who sabotaged it as he's trying to run away, which I think is just a one moment of badassery, all implying that this was a plan to get behind to get to the bottom of who destroyed the Icarus. Diana flies up and flies the plane uh, by spinning it physically around. Uh,
Which is just
Edda's
a really funny visual.
Yeah.
I
While Edda's
like
working to
it.
get manual control, it's this nice like team building story
Mm-hmm.
almost.
Yeah.
Uh, it's quick and it's very nice. It's a very nice story to essentially end the Paradise
Mm-hmm.
Island segments on.
We ended on a great scene then when Vanessa asks everybody to stand together to get a picture of all the Amazons. And I like that she includes Julia in that picture.
Yes.
I think that's great. But we go into the epilogue, which is drawn by Brian Boland and Mark Farmer. So get another page of Brian Boland art here, which is very nice.
This sequence is probably the best drawn, just because
Mm-hmm.
it's Brian Boland.
Yeah,
Uh,
and also he was only asked to do 2 pages, one of which was one complete image. So he was able to dedicate some very much quality time to this.
yes.
But we get one last little story here. Well, I mean, Diana takes Vanessa and Julia away, obviously. But we get one last little story here in the annual called "Private Lives Testament," um,
Drawn by Perez.
drawn by
Uh,
Perez, and we're essentially giving an epilogue to the Mindy Mayer story. We're called to
the reading.
read off Mindy Mayer's will, or in this case, she has filmed her will and has
I
been.
love how she opens.
Mhm. Hello, darlings. Well, it looks like I didn't make it to 50 after all. No, me, I probably died during one hell of a party with some gorgeous hunk of man flesh. Oh my god,
Which
I love this character. I
it's
love this
cruelly
character so.
ironic. It's so cruelly ironic.
Yeah.
Uh, so this tape is strictly between me and you, my precious family and closest, dearest friends. And it's basically who's she gonna give? We learn about her Lily, her sweet little sister. Um, you know, my sweet self-sacrificing little sister. You were Papa's perfect little daughter, cooking, cleaning, ironing, and you were always quick to remind Papa of how lazy and self-centered I was. A sorry excuse for a Jewish daughter. Yes, Lily, I admit I was jealous of all of Papa's affections for you, but I couldn't pay the price you were paying. Besides, you didn't fool me. You wanted out as badly as I did. That's why you married Erwin so young. To escape. Ha! Some escape. 5 obnoxious brats and a boorish husband. And she gives her sister, uh, you know, $500,000 on one condition, that you and Erwin move back to Chicago to be with Papa. And it's just this twisted, almost punishment in her will.
Mhm.
Um, for
Which is so in
those
character for
for
such
those
like
who
just.
wronged her, you Perez makes you feel for her though. Like,
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah.
uh, uh, and what's like, because then the next thing because Perez then basically pulls a trick. Because you think, oh, the rest of this is going to be a bunch of things with a bunch of twists. But the next thing is she gives Chrissy, her secretary, thanks for being more than a secretary, being her conscience. I can't think of a better person to inherit the controlling shares of Mayor Publicists. Give yourself a raise, Miss Fenton. You've earned it. Like, it's just this amazing act of kindness to
Mhm.
the good people around her that despite the act she really cared. Because then we get to her brother,
Yeah.
uh, who is revealed to be gay. Um,
Mhm.
something that is and Perez does something beautifully progressive for 1988. Mindy could give him the world. But because he asked for it, because he didn't want anything but the love of his family, she gives him nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not because of anything, any malice. It's Perez writes it to be this genuine brother sister bond and this
Yeah,
genuine
yeah,
care.
and probably the only genuine bond that Mindy had within her family.
Yes.
Hmm.
Um,
And then we get the final bit of her will, which is the best bit. Princess Diana, out of all my clients, I've never known one whose respect I value more than yours. I hope that my contribution to the Wonder Woman Foundation can help in earning that respect, and that it will convince you to honor this last request. To take this gaudy urn, which, when you get it, should be filled with my ashes, and scatter them in the waters around Paradise Island. And that's how it
and
ends.
that's how it ends. She goes and does it.
Oh
And
man,
it's
oh, it's
it's
so
it's a
good.
beautiful ending on this character.
And to finish off the will, Mindy says this: Diana, in this make-believe laminated business of mine, finding true innocence is rare. True is rare. True honesty even rarer, and true love nearly impossible. Yet you've known it all your life. All the happiness I've ever clawed and fought for, you were simply born into on that wonderful Paradise Island. What I wouldn't give to know that kind of feeling. To be part of a world of innocence, honesty, and unequivocal love. To be truly happy, God, what I wouldn't give for that.
And
Oh my God. Oh,
surprisingly, that's not where the volume ends. We still have
yeah. I would really like it to end there because it feels like it
it's
should.
it feels like it
Um,
should, but also you have dangling plot threads in the actual issue, so I get why it doesn't.
yeah. I really would like to end the discussion there. I really, really would, because that's gorgeous. Would have two issues left. Wonder Woman 23. Look how nice and happy Hermes looks
This
on this
is.
cover.
But we open
um,
with this image of Diana and Hippolyta on the cover of a magazine, and Vanessa becoming a celebrity at school. And I like that Vanessa's allowed to be kind of mean about it, about,
oh yeah, yeah. Well, especially because you do feel like kind of bad for her in that
you feel,
teenager way, when it
yeah.
comes to Barry and everything. I
Well,
think she kind of deserves this.
she's also just she's written as a normal teenager.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
she's
Yeah.
allowed to be flawed and she's allowed to fuck up, but she never fucks up so hard that it's like unforgivable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
But yeah. Meanwhile, we catch back up with the guy that was duplicated by an orb back in a
yes.
previous issue. We'll
He's
finally get a
reading a
follow up on that.
newspaper of Wonder Woman. The guy at the newsstand pulls it out of his hands and rips it up because it's, he won't pay for it. Um, so the guy just, takes care of him, uh, punishes this guy on his back. I apologize for that, but he shouldn't have. Please, woman, if your obese spouse is hurt, I will gladly. He's accused of being a thief. He then coughs up coins to pay for it. And he's approached by a police officer. And he just basically blows up and vanishes.
Mhm.
And we get
With,
the
with a
title.
really fun title page in the explosion, that says "A God Among Men," and I think that's fun. Um, Also, inks in this are done by Will Bleiber.
Liebert. Um, so then we see, a special news bulletin basically catching us up with how Diana's being an ambassador, the news
Mhm.
eating it up. And I really like it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's a really smart way to do it. Um,
and then she notices
yeah.
a cloaked figure in the crowd who she must chase.
You know what I just randomly thought looking at that whole news report couple page of panels. Um, I don't think we'd have scenes like that if not for the Dark Knight Returns. I don't know why I thought that, but
Probably not.
I really
Like,
don't think scenes like that would exist if not for the Dark Knight Returns, which
and the way
I
Perez uses it is really good at quickly getting the information across.
yeah, yeah. I know we rag on Frank Miller a lot, but I don't know. I feel like that's such a unique part of comics today that at the very least its inception would have been held off if
Yes.
Miller hadn't done it in Dark Knight Returns.
Yes. Well, because it's one of the best parts of Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, yeah, I love those news bulletin things.
Yes.
Anyway, but yeah, so Diana's doing that interview. She sees the hooded figure. She
Chases
it
him
chases
through
him.
town, flies through the sky,
Mhm.
and it's
And
Hermes.
Hermes, um, who's nice to see here. Um, but he doesn't. But he's not. He doesn't seem in the best of spirits, actually.
He's here. He's
Um,
here to aid her in her mission of proselytization. He rains coins down on the people, and is basically trying to buy people's worship.
mhm.
Um, I think an idea that I think Patty Jenkins takes in Wonder Woman 1984, at least a little bit. There's a little
Yeah,
bit of inspiration from
yeah,
this.
I'd agree with. Yeah. And Diana reacts, naturally. She's like, "You're resorting to bribery," like,
Yes.
what is that? Um, but yeah, so Hermes leaves. We get some more.
Some
Oh, go ahead.
some thieves, stole this giant 20-pound bag of gold and diamonds. And then Hermes appears in the bag and, as the god of thieves, I appreciate your efforts, crude and amateurish as they are, but be advised, though, that true thievery is an entrapment best left to the professionals. Those expert enough to know better than to steal from me. Um, so he slams their car. Um, and we basically see another sequence of news bulletins of Diana and Hermes healing the sick and gathering worshippers.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, Vanessa becomes enamored with Hermes because, like, Vanessa, you are such a teenager.
I
Uh,
just love that continuous trend uh of Vanessa latching onto trends. It's just okay.
yes.
What is the new popular Greek thing?
Yes. Hermes then and Diana then visit the Capitalises. Vanessa fangirls.
Hmm.
Um, and then Julia sends her away, and Julia becomes the voice of reason and
Hmm.
has the balls to stand up to a literal god.
Yeah.
Once again, Julia's a badass.
We love her.
Like
Um,
like like Hermes, like, oh, it's not Hermes, my child, it's Lord Hermes. And then later in the scene, I'm sorry, Diana, but I'm not flattered by Lord Hermes' assertions that faith is chattel, which we humans would be readily sold to the highest bidder. And it's Professor Lord Hermes, not woman, which is just it's a
so good.
sting. I love it. And Julia holds her own.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Meanwhile, Hermes takes Diana away.
it,
The,
it causes a rift between Julia and Vanessa,
mhm,
but not a rift that can't be healed.
yeah.
Uh,
Meanwhile, Vanessa goes on, or not Vanessa, Julia goes on her date with Mr. Wakefield, or sorry, Horace. Um,
Forrest, which and the date's kind of adorable.
yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I like them. Um, but
He suggests they
th
have a second fishing date,
yeah.
and they're distracted by a glow from above. Hermes and Diana, uh, uh, and Hermes basically wants to rule them over, but Diana starts to come to her senses that she's not a god and she is one of the people.
Mhm.
Which again, it's a shame we don't get more time to explore the power dynamic because
Yeah,
there
I
is a
mean,
power dynamic
this
here.
whole issue's kind of dedicated to it, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
but
it's enough.
it's enough. It's good. Um, but yeah, uh, Hermes is then approached by someone speaking classical Greek, um, whose family has been asking for the living returns, and she asks her name is Yuri, which as someone who studied Greek mythology, I could see the twist that was coming. At least
Oh,
I had
okay.
I had a guess. I'm like, is Perez doing this? I hope he is, because one, that takes a lot of research because it's a thing that doesn't get talked about as much. Uh,
So I don't know what this thing is.
so she's a Gorgon.
Well, okay.
So
Well,
so
yeah, but I mean, like what you're referring to, like in the original Greek
the
mythology,
fact the fact that Medusa had two sisters, people, a lot of adaptations don't include them, but they should.
hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's how there can
I
be a
mean,
Gorgon.
we've established well enough throughout these 24 25 issues that Perez has done his research.
And I love it.
Yeah.
Um, but
So.
yeah, Hermes goes to cure her father, who is this decrepit old man who is not worthy. Has him grab his caduceus, which has always been sort of oddly a symbol of medicine, despite Hermes not being associated with medicine. I think it's part of a thing of involving also travelers and hospitality, then merging as concepts as history goes on. It's an interesting thing. Conversation for another day. But he grabs where the serpents join, and it zaps Hermes of his power.
Yes, and Yuri is revealed as Uriel, I
You're
believe.
you're you're
Uriel.
Uriel. It's supposed to sound almost like Muriel, I think.
Okay.
Like a little bit. It's one of the things, but the one of the other Gorgons. So snakes for hair, turns people to stone. Uh, there is also an assassin of gods come to attack. And
Ixion, is that how you
Ixion the
pronounce it?
assassin,
Ixion
which
the
again
assassin.
I don't know if this is from the myths. It might be.
Okay.
But we move into
And
the final issue.
the final issue, issue 24 of Wonder Woman. Um, and we do kind of give away that uh this one's Phobos, right? Yeah, Phobos.
Yes, it's Phobos.
Yeah.
But it's been hinted at, a mysterious figure instilling fear.
Mhm.
It's going to be Phobos.
Oh, sorry, he is there actually on the second to the last page for like one panel.
Like one panel. It's
Yeah.
a big reveal. And we start by going back to Vanessa in her bedroom,
Hmm.
watching basically as everything goes wrong on TV. It loses picture. We see some cops exploring the wreckage. One of them is just instilled. They find one just instilled with fear. Uh, they find that an old building appeared, and we basically find Phobos and Uriel attacking Hermes. And this issue is Combat Zone. Uh, and Hermes is just terrified. Like we locked him up. He was in prison
Hmm.
first. How did he escape? Well, the other Olympians, uh, basically in destroying Olympus, let all sorts of creatures out, is the implication.
Hmm.
Uh, which I think that's pretty much going to be a setup for what comes later in the run. It's got to
Hmm.
be, right?
Yeah, yeah. This definitely gets touched upon more. Yeah, later.
Yes. But they steal his sort of sacred symbols, um, and they start to basically inspire panic and fear. And I love the way it's laid out,
Hmm.
especially on like pages 4 and 5 of the issue. 4 being
Yeah,
all
yeah.
these smaller panels of just people creating fear.
Hmm.
Our
And then
giant
five
monster.
being just the big portrait of Ixion at the middle holding Hermes, and just everyone more so reacting to it. Yeah, it's a very nice setup for it.
And then Vanessa, seeing this, runs downstairs to her mother. Um, and it's this whole idea of he's got company, but she just makes her see the horror on screen. Um, and this almost kind of fixes the relationship, just because it's like
Hmm.
mother and daughter coming together because, oh god, there's a threat to the world.
Yeah.
Um, which I love. I love the human element that Perez just includes through the entire run.
Hmm.
It really works.
Yeah. Um, but Uriel takes Hermes I had already
Caduce.
taken his helmet and spear staff, whatever it is.
It's called a caduceus.
Okay, fucking fine, whatever.
It's used as a symbol of medicine
I don't
in the
fucking
modern
care.
day.
I don't fucking care. You're right. Shit. Okay. I don't fucking care. Anyway, um, Hermes is trying to break free from Ixion.
And
Um.
Ixion is just being like a kaiju and stomping on the ground. Bullets aren't
Mhm.
affecting it. Great action. A cameraman zooms in for a close up. We see a destroyed statue, very much implied to be a person who was
Mhm.
turned to stone and smashed. Uriel comes to the camera. He's like, "Hello, my pretty. My name is Uriel. What's yours?" Fascinating instrument, a video camera. May I see it? Yes, quite fascinating. Now, Dullard, a big smile.
And she turns the news person into or is it the camera woman into
And just
stone. Um, um, Julie is watching
Ixion,
all this destruction on the screen, turns off the TV.
just as
Uh,
Ixion smashes the newswoman. Uh,
yeah. Oh my God. Ugh, love it. Um, but yeah.
uh,
Meanwhile, Diana is just having a good time. She's swimming. She doesn't know any of this shit's happening. Um,
Hermes is
And
able basically to scry to her to get her caught up to speed, so she flies off.
mhm.
And interestingly,
We
uh,
see Etta Candy again, and Etta and Steve have been surprisingly absent from a lot of this collection.
yes, since they've essentially, you know, left. Um, she calls in Major Baines, uh, basically to report on the situation um, that's been happening. This is basically a giant invasion plan, and we see just terror in the streets, fear and panic. Um, Phobos is ranting like a madman, but
Mhm.
Diana ties him up.
As you do.
Because and she basically has done this song and dance before.
Mhm.
Um,
She literally killed his brother. So yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, so she goes after Ixion then. Ixion is first off holding up a giant ship.
yeah. Which is it's the idea is that it's a restoration of the USS Frigate Constitution as a monument to the Revolutionary War because this is Boston, remember? Um,
True.
which is it's such a nice little detail that you wouldn't think they could include, but it's nice that they do it.
Yeah.
Um, Diana's basically told to
Um
go get the Caduceus. There's just some amazing action. Um, Perez, Perez, and then the colorist for this issue are both working hand in hand to make this work. It's Carl Gafford's doing the coloring, and I think he's done coloring for both volumes.
I think yeah, I'm pretty sure.
He's just really good. Like the army's there to keep firing. Um, they're able to. Diana's able to get the Caduceus back to Hermes. Um, and Caduceus and Hermes basically has his power back.
Mhm.
Diana is able to slam Ixion into a literal mountain out in space,
Mhm.
uh, in the night sky,
And
and
Hermes takes Phobos away.
basically wraps everything up.
Yeah.
Uh, and uh,
Then we get a nice little scene here at the end here between Diana and Hermes. Um where oh wait, hang on. Is that not until the very end? Oh no, no, yeah, oh no, sorry, yeah. Oh, no, you're right. Oh yeah, nice little scene between the two of them here actually. Um where Hermes is like visibly hurt by how he's lost Diana's favor here.
yes, which is really interesting.
Hmm.
Uh, Especially since again it's making up just the dichotomy of man versus god.
Hmm.
um,
And how Diana is that figure between the two of them.
between the two,
Uh,
and it's meant to be the linker,
yeah.
and working together, that's how they can get Ixion you know destroyed.
Hmm.
um,
But yeah, so they destroy Ixion. We get a nice little scene at the end here with Julia, Vanessa, and Diana coming back home.
and they all sort of make it up, and Diana apologizes to Julia, and Julia's like, oh, you don't need to apologize. Like, no, I do. I knew he was wrong, yet I let my reverence for him cloud my judgment. Though my arrogance told me you were right, I couldn't go against the will of my God. Um, Considering how obdurately I advocated my stance, I can't say I blame you. Julia, please, if I made you angry. No, sweetie, it wasn't you. In a way, it wasn't even Hermes. It was something else, which unfortunately exacerbated an already tense situation. I guess none of you Amazons, being blessed with an everlasting knowledge, have ever experienced menopause.
And it can seem a little ham-fisted, but I think it's done quite well. Um, we learned that Julia is going through menopause, and Diana has vaguely heard of it. She's read about it, but is just there to comfort Julia because she's confused. She's going
Julia's
through a
being
lot.
faced with her own mortality,
Yeah.
basically.
Um,
Um,
and so they comfort. Diana's not only there for her, but Julia is also there as always for Diana, and they comfort each
yes.
other. Vanessa watches on as
And crying with tears of joy, which
Mhm.
again, they're back together as a family.
Yeah, and
And
Hermes broods outside and flies away. We get a great line at the end here. Are you sure Hermes knows that? He must. He's a god. Yes, sweetheart. But remember, even a god can be all
all
too
too
human.
human.
So that's that.
That is
That's
where we
that's
end.
that's Wonder Woman by George Perez, Volume 2. That's the first third of the George Perez Wonder Woman run, and
Yes.
not just Volume 2, but the first third altogether. What do you think?
I loved it. I this is also the last time Perez draws the art itself, which is kind of sad, but
Mhm.
also it's kind of taking a toll on him. You can tell.
Yeah,
Uh,
and at the end of the day, it's Perez's stories that he's told with this character
yes.
that have really, held these collections together and have really made these a really enjoyable experience to read through and talk about
And they're
for
so
for a nearly 6 hour discussion altogether. so
yes. I mean,
so
it's a lot.
yeah, yeah.
It's
To say that we've enjoyed our time covering this is definitely an understatement.
yes. And
And
it'll be so much fun when we eventually get to come back to this, and as I'm sure we will.
we most
Uh,
definitely will.
what I also I've loved just overall is how much of this is just focusing in on character.
Mhm,
Perez wants to make you love these people.
yeah,
Like I had I had never heard of a Julia Capitalis. I haven't heard of a lot of these characters.
yeah. But they leave such a mark, and they really do make you care about each and every single one of them. Perez put a lot of time and effort into these characters and this world that he's created for something that the first we talked a lot about in these past two collections, like how much this run crosses over with a bunch of things with Millennium and Superman, the various Superman titles, but it still feels very unique and very standalone because it can tell such a tight story despite continually crossing over with the larger DC universe.
Honestly, it's one that I'd recommend if you're still listening and you haven't read this.
Yeah.
If you've never gotten into Wonder Woman, choose this one.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
most definitely. I
beautiful.
mean, there are a lot of great Wonder Woman runs out there,
Yeah.
and she's definitely a character that people need to delve into more.
DC needs to
Yeah,
actually care about her more. Like
yeah,
she needs to take. I mean, DC needs to care about all of its major heroes more, uh,
mhm.
and it needs to be able to promote these characters and tell interesting stories. Like I'm sure there are other Wonder Woman runs we will also read,
Yeah,
which are fabulous and amazing, and probably some that aren't great. Um, but this one is just a perfect introduction.
yeah, yeah, definitely. As we mentioned briefly at the beginning of this, we did also cover some. You watched two Wonder Woman films for the first time recently. The first that you watched was the animated film from 2019, Wonder Woman
Wonder Woman
Bloodlines,
Bloodlines, which
which we've
is
covered a fair few films from that larger universe now. Actually,
yes,
that's one of the ones towards the very end. I think it's the second to last one in that whole universe.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It stands on its own nicely
It does.
from
It does.
separate
It's
from
got
the
a great voice
universe.
cast. One of the few Wonder Woman adaptations to use the Capitelluses.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and I know, I know.
they do Julie a bit dirty,
They do, but only
but I
because
do
only
like what
because
they do
only
with
because of how they wanted to
Vanessa.
use Vanessa, I'd say. And that is something that does happen with Vanessa's character way down the line, like not in
And
the Perez stuff. It's way later.
I can imagine it happening with Vanessa eventually,
Hmm.
or something similar. I
Vanessa's a
still,
character with a lot of angst.
yeah, she's angst, and I get it. I like a lot of the I liked a lot of it. I like the twist villain too, who's behind running the things behind the scenes. I loved
Mhm.
most of the voice cast. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I
I'm
mean,
just
Rosario Dawson is just a really great Diana
yeah.
Prince. Like, I love
Uh,
her.
but the one thing that's kind of sad for me is they kill off Julia right at the beginning, and it
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it
I
kind of
mean,
also
yeah.
runs the gambit of let's introduce a bunch of Wonder Woman villains and not give them as much time to shine.
Mhm.
Uh,
But it does feel nice, like that. Like it does feel almost kind of like an anthology,
yeah,
that you do see like because what it does because it's so much later on in that universe, they take you back to the beginnings of that Wonder Woman, that version of Wonder Woman, and they show like how she became the hero that she is and how well known she was before Justice League War, which we did also watch way back for Justice League Origin.
origin.
Um,
Uh,
so you see that. I think it's really cool. It's a
Yes,
nice aspect of it.
it's a nice film. I'd recommend it, especially if you like that universe. The voice cast is great. There's a
Mhm.
talking minotaur called Ferdinand, um,
Yes,
which I think is
it's
great,
pretty
played by
great.
Michael Dorn.
Yes.
Um,
But then you
uh,
also watched Wonder Woman 1984 for this.
oh boy,
Okay, look, it's not bad. Like
it
it's
is.
it's for some reason it's purported as like one of these awful comic book films on Twitter, and I just don't think it's that bad.
It's not. The problem is the first one was so good. Like
Yeah, Yeah,
And Wonder
the
Woman
bar was set so
1984 is
ridiculously high.
1984 isn't necessarily bad. It's just very, very messy.
Hmm.
Uh, Interestingly, as a film, it's set during the 80s, and there are a lot of ideas that it draws from the Perez run, um,
Mhm.
especially the whole.
In the same way that Patty Jenkins utilized the World War One setting in the first film, she utilizes the '80s setting in a very smart
Uh,
way in the second one.
Things I absolutely love: the color palette. It's a
Oh my God, it's
very
gorgeous.
colorful film.
The recolored Wonder Woman costume is fucking gorgeous. Like
It's
I love
great.
that.
Apparently,
Um,
apparently people get annoyed that like, oh, and in Zack Snyder's Justice League and in Justice League and in Batman v Superman, she was supposed to be laying low. It's like, okay, the internet wasn't a thing. Also, does it matter?
it
Does
really
that?
doesn't matter.
Um,
Um, I
I
mean, the biggest fault of the film is Cheetah, or
yes,
specifically Barbara Minerva. Like honestly,
Barb.
like when she's actually Cheetah, I like the portrayal. It's Barbara
Um,
Minerva that
Now
bothers me.
Kristen Wiig is great. She
Yeah,
is acting her heart out
um,
in every scene, and she has charisma.
yeah.
The problem is
We were messaging.
they
Sorry, go
make
ahead.
her Selena Kyle from Batman
Well, yeah, I
Returns.
was saying like that's I wouldn't even say necessarily Selena Kyle. It's because that's a very different play on that particular comic book movie trope. I would think more to like Jim Carrey's Riddler from Batman
Oh,
Forever.
that too.
That's what
That
I would think of, you know? Like
basically
if
they're
we're
they're
talking about that trope in comic book films, or fucking Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2,
oh yeah.
or
Except
or the bad guy from Iron Man 3. Like it,
except at least they do keep they do make Barbara and Diana friends, and they make the descent kind of slow. My big problem with
Mhm.
it is it just doesn't feel like Cheetah. It feels
Yeah,
like Silver Swan. Like
I get that. I
the
get
the
that.
whole like especially because I watched Bloodlines one night and then 84 the next night. I had specifically the whole like idea of Vanessa becoming Silver Swan because of her own insecurities. Same thing from the Perez run. Like it's that would have worked better, and it would have really helped tie into the theme of taking flight and growing
Mhm.
as a person, especially if you did an aerial battle. I mean,
Yeah.
you have this golden winged armor for Diana, uh, and that, and then there isn't an aerial battle. The battle is basically on the ground.
Mhm.
I also think the whole wishing plot
It's
has
not bad. It's not
it's not
bad.
bad. It's just it has a. I think it could have been simplified. I think there could have been things that you can
But I
simplify.
do like I like
Pedro Pascal though
I was
is
gonna say like on Maxwell Lord, like I think that wishing plot is not so much there for Diana, though it is used in the whole Steve Trevor thing. Like I think it's there for the Maxwell Lord plot, and that's where it fucking sells it, you know.
yes. Um,
And Pedro Pascal is Pedro Pascal, and he's fucking perfect in everything he does. He can do no wrong.
he's
He's
great.
he's great. He's really really great. Um, but yeah, in short, Wonder Woman 1984 is good, but it can be better. So,
I'd say it's messy. I'd also argue that I like the Chris Pine plot, but I feel like if you again instead of doing Barbara Minerva, bring in the Capitalises,
I could see that.
make
Yeah.
Vanessa the villain, have Julia as sort of Wonder Woman's partner, and shift it that way,
Mhm.
and tighten up the film just a
I think there
bit.
was also just a desire to rush into doing a Cheetah plot because Cheetah's never been done in live action.
Yeah, which
So
yeah, it's just kind of a shame. It's just
yeah, yeah. But anyway, I guess that about does it, doesn't it?
that does it. Yeah, that
All
was
right. So you're ready to learn what the next episode is, aren't
yeah.
you?
I had
All
a
right,
couple of
lay out
guesses.
your thought process to me. Go
So my
ahead.
first thought process was okay. I initially had to narrow it down to we're either going to be doing the Flash or Green Arrow. They're the two big heroes we haven't really done yet. Um, and these next two episodes are closing out our first year of Fresh Face Comics. It's going to be one of them. I was leaning towards Flash, initially thinking we'd maybe start with like Flash by Jeff Johns for a couple episodes, and then lead into Flashpoint. But then I remembered, Joey, you're insane,
That's
right?
true. That
Are we
that
doing Flashpoint next?
so okay. So I'll say you're so okay. So the idea, of course, being you're right about it is a Flash comic. Um, because of course the idea is that we've covered solo comics for every one of the big six so far except for Flash, but we have covered a lot of Flash content though, haven't we? Like we've seen Flash in a lot of things that we've done. Um, so I don't think you necessarily need a perfect like introduction to the character, but also I think when I think of a good Flashpoint introduction, Flashpoint of a good Flash introduction, I'm thinking of um a good solo run that you can be like, okay, well here's an introduction to the character, but a fair bit about him already. To be fair, when I thought of this, I was like, man, we've covered a lot of New 52 content already, haven't we? We haven't even seen how it all began. So you are
So
correct. We are
we're
covering
going to
Flashpoint.
see how it all
We're
begins.
gonna do Flashpoint next time. But again, when I say that we're starting Flash comics, it's not. Keep in mind when I say this, it's not necessarily a Flash comic.
Isn't.
Flashpoint is a DC Universe event. It just happens to focus on Barry Allen, and Barry Allen happens to be the only character there from the main DC continuity at the time, or only mainline version of DC continuity there. Um, so yeah, we're doing Flashpoint next time. And then I will say right now that after that we're gonna do the first volume of the New 52 stuff.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah,
So,
so the first volume of the New 52 stuff will be your official start to Flash
uh,
comics. Flashpoint is more like hey, we know the
so
New
we're
52 stuff
technically
already.
including one of the crises because this is technically a crisis.
That is true. That is true. And it is one of those things that like the Flashpoint story is so far reaching. Like I don't think you realize how far reaching it is. Like I know there's a sequel run going on right now that called Flashpoint Beyond, but there's even more to that. Like there's stuff that like we've seen like since then, like between Flashpoint and Flashpoint Beyond, there's still been more continuations of Flashpoint in there. Um it's a very important event that I think you do need to read. Now, one thing I
Okay,
do know is that you saw the animated movie a long time ago, right?
a very long time ago.
How much do
I
you remember of it?
I remember like the basic premise, and I remember Thomas Wayne as Batman.
And that's all you remember?
Isn't Professor Zoom in it too? Like maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of it. I probably saw it very close to like when it came out because it was on Netflix for a
I think
while.
it came out in 2013. I think that was when that film came out.
Yeah,
Which
so like
which oh my god, that came out in 2013. Holy fuck.
that's
Uh,
like nearly a decade.
Jesus. Oh my god.
Okay.
So yeah, Flashpoint next time. Very exciting. So that'll be episode 26. Episode 27 will be The Flash Move Forward. That is the name of that first volume. So yeah. I
So
guess that
yeah.
about does it. You can buy Wonder Woman by George Perez Volume 2 in the description below. I'll leave an Amazon link down there. Same goes for our next reading, Flashpoint by Jeff Johns. You can buy that down there. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter. I am at Jomo with 3 underscores. Jacob is at Newt5996. Both those links will be down in the description. You can go check those out. Follow us on Twitter. We have a good time. Also, be on the lookout on our Twitters because usually a couple days before we record the podcast, we have a Q&A or just general comments that you want to leave about the podcast or whatever we're covering. You could leave those right down there, and we'll talk about those points on the podcast as you heard in this episode. So I guess that about does it, right? Anything else? I think we're good,
I
right?
think we're good. We're doing more
Um,
Jeff Johns
we are doing
too.
more Jeff Johns, yes.
This man has his fingers in so many DC
He does. He
characters.
does. Like, here's the thing. Like, it's not even like I'm trying to get you to read Jeff Johns things. It's like, okay, well, here I could start you on this. Oh fuck, it's Jeff Johns. You know, like I can't do much about it. So until next time, this has been Joey Morgan.
And Jacob Licklider,
Goodbye.
goodbye.